Coming up on this episode of Belief Hole.
Who knows the potential for
what's out there, what's in dimensions next
things
door.
existing. Yeah, maybe certain places around our planet where it's a thinner region of our reality to the next, and maybe some places things slip through, and that's why you see them momentarily, and then you don't see them for 20 years, and then again, 20 years later, another flap of sightings like Mothman. Maybe they're just interdimensional visitors that happen to be in the right place at the right time to enter into our realm and then just blink out for another few decades. Wolf Blitzer. Is that his real name? That's got to be a news name.
He is a clone.
He looks like a wolf.
Blitzer.
He's a cynocephali. He's got his hologram skin suit on, and you can't see through it. He's out sniffing fear in the back room because they're feeding on it. There's a theme in this too, where they're trying to get you to engage with them,
like looking in the eyes.
Yes,
sort of
and then
thing.
they have this. A lot of them are reported as grinning, just smiling with this feeling of pure evil and menace. Yeah, I mean, the argument could be made that they do get something out of terrifying people.
Try to visualize the scene of the dog-headed men from the trailer park.
They're eating a Red Baron.
I love Red
They
Baron.
have like a stained wife beater on.
But it's just human blood instead of like barbecue sauce.
Give me that cheese sauce.
Norma? The amount of symbolism of Baphomet and the Eye of Horus and
Come on, everybody at home. It's rampant.
everywhere. It's
and it's
rampant
pervasive.
and pervasive. It is. It's
It
in
is.
music culture. It is everywhere.
Have you seen
Have
a
you seen a
cynocephali?
dogman?
Have you seen an upright walking canid? We would love to hear about it.
Conspiracy.
Synchronicity, Sasquatch,
Donald Trump.
alien races, Satanism in Hollywood, MK Ultra,
Pleiadians.
Mandela effect,
Close the door, Ed.
Jeremy, close your door.
inner
Snowflakes.
Earth, disagreements,
My lab.
JFK assassination,
Flat Earth.
Corey Feldman, magicians are demons, specters and spooks, sleep paralysis, Muslim Islamicist, the gender spectrum, alternative history, shadow people,
Quiet, I'm trying to say words with the mouth.
psilocybin, sorcery, poltergeist, sulforaphane, evolution, is it real?
Skull and Bones. I would never talk about it. That's old. Y2K.
Cover-ups, the Oklahoma City bombing, vampire.
Boy, is this ever strange today, Wilma. Halloween may still be at least 3 weeks away, but a ghoulish story is already evolving in Bainbridge Township. Police there say Saturday night a man claiming to be a werewolf terrorized a local family.
It's not often that you see the word werewolf on the front page headlines, but this story was no joke. This quiet street with the handmade sign and the tree-lined road became a sight of horror.
That's when we heard this very deep, guttural growl. It just sounded so sinister and evil.
And I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to get away from this thing. And then it came closer, and it stuck its head in my window.
I thought I had seen an animal. I thought I'd seen a dog. What kind of dog walks on two legs?
Werewolves and demons. A number of young women were killed, their bodies exhibiting signs of animal attack.
The classic werewolf can change shape anytime it wants, day and night. That's why I call them shapeshifters.
What about killing it with silver bullets?
Oh, sure. Silver bullets are fire. It's the only way to get rid of the damn things. They're worse than cockroaches.
The reports of its appearance are remarkably consistent.
You think I don't know the difference between a wolf and a man?
I had no idea what this thing was.
It's an ancient thing in terms of accounts, this idea of shapeshifting. Shapeshifting between human and many different forms.
Whoever is bitten by a werewolf and lives becomes a werewolf himself.
Well, hello. And hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Belief Hole episode 9.
Just on time.
Just in time.
The Dogman episode.
Yes, the long-awaited
Anticipated.
Dogman episode.
Yeah, well, I've been anticipating it.
You have been.
I know. It's been a while.
I love that. I think at the beginning of the last 3 episodes, that's been your first line.
What?
It's been a while.
It has been.
a while,
I mean,
guys.
this is the longest we've waited to do another episode.
Well, to be fair, we do. Our previous episode is now available on Patreon.
Yes.
Because we needed to give something to our paid listeners. Thank you guys, by the way.
Yes, thank you very much.
Ron and Trisha. And may that list continue.
Exactly.
May it ever so.
May it
so
ever
that we may
so.
continue.
Yes.
Yes, so we may continue.
But yes, long anticipated episode because Jeremy's fascination with the Dogman.
Yeah,
Some might argue abnormal fascination.
I don't. It's not like I have posters of the Dogman above my bed.
You would if they were available.
They're next to my bed. They're not above my bed.
Like Michael Jordan.
Like Michael Jordan's up there. Tara Banks.
I had a It's Tyra.
Tara Banks.
Tara Banks. I had a Tyra Banks.
I got my finger on the pulse. The kids are.
Did you have a poster above your bed, John? I had Tyra Banks above my bed when I was.
That's what I was referencing.
Tyra?
It's Tyra Banks.
Oh, I thought you said Tara again.
That was Jeremy that said it.
Don't point out who
that was
misspoke
like
about
15
Tyra.
years ago to be fair.
Anyways.
Why is she not?
No, before everybody realized she's insane.
Is she insane?
I don't know. I've seen her. I've walked by the television in Mom's living room and it's been on. Tyra's been on there. And
seems a little crazy to me. I would agree.
It's a little off the wall. She said some things. But who hasn't? We've said some things.
Welcome to our Tyra Banks episode, the long anticipated.
She's a Dogman. Breaking news.
A relevant talk show host.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
She's not
so
relevant.
how have you been, my brothers?
I've been good. This is my favorite time of year. The veil is lifting. You can smell it.
When the seasons change?
Yeah, specifically, when
closer to All Hallows Eve.
Yeah. When is it Samhain is coming? When the end of the the warm season goes into the cool season and that the veil between our world and the next or the other unseen world starts to thin. Mm-hmm. And you get all this,
That's the scientific description of.
Yes. See, there's evidence.
Dogman.
Ooh. It's funny.
That's a sensual dog, man.
He's like, ooh, come closer. It's good to see you, though. I'm glad you guys are. It's been a while.
I know. Well, you were gone too.
I
for a
said
little
it
bit.
again, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
You were out of town too, so let's throw that in as a good excuse as well. Let's pile
Sorry
on.
if anyone was waiting for us. We're back.
We're back
with some new info,
and we're coming at you hard.
Hard in the paint.
That sounded bad. But yes, we are
coming at you soft.
We're coming at you kindly, giving you room to back up if you're uncomfortable. But we're here.
Yeah.
And
anything new in your lives, guys? It sounds like an explosion of life.
Oh, there's new stuff. The stuff we can't really talk about.
Yeah, there's some stuff related to the podcast that could be exciting.
Ooh,
we
right.
don't know. But I don't know if we
What's
should
that?
mention it.
We must remain.
I think you should.
We must remain tight-lipped. We don't know if it's going to
just
happen.
a little teaser. Because it probably won't happen, but it might.
It probably won't happen.
No,
but
I don't know if it probably won't happen, but it's still interesting. I think you should mention it.
Okay, so we received an email.
Short version.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to summarize it pretty quickly.
On September 12th at 3
It was a
p.m.,
dark and stormy night.
I woke up from a hangover and I thought I should check my email.
My email?
And I checked my email. That's what I call my email to make it more friendly sounding.
Oh, what's in my email?
No, we received an email. It was from a casting associate of
Okay, go ahead.
Of a casting associate from a company of casting, and they reached out to us because there's apparently a show on a major network that is yet to be named that is doing a TV show that's relates to what our podcast is.
Yeah, we can't go into too much information, and
Right.
we honestly don't know that much about it because we've only been in talks with them for a short time with kind of a couple interviews.
Producers.
They're just looking for YouTubers, podcasters that are interested in the paranormal and specifically cryptozoology.
And I guess they were referred us to them. That's how you say it?
They will refer us to them.
Yes. So thank you for if whoever's out there who's a fan who happens to know this casting company.
That's how it happened? There was
according to her, she heard from
reference?
a few different people referred us to her.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool. So there's potential that there may be...
It's
a slight potential.
It's a slight
But,
potential.
I mean, you've made it through the interview process.
Yeah, right now I would say it's 50-50, launch.
That's
might
pretty
get on
cool,
the
though.
TV.
Yeah, you might be on the boob tube.
Right. I think it'd be great for the show. That's what I'm really concerned. It would help us continue our passion for exploring the strange and
yeah. So there may be potential to be on a television show that could
I think
be interesting.
The exciting part of that would be that we could potentially make some income to help the show progress and maybe get some more exposure so that we can do more of these more regularly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting it to pay a lot or anything, but
right.
Just the exposure for the show would be super duper.
That would be
Speaking
the
of
best,
which,
actually.
if you feel like you want to donate to the show, please head over to beliefhole.com.
Go to our maintenance
Become
page.
a Patreon subscriber, and maybe we'll start putting out more episodes so that we can pay for the gear and all the things that help the show run.
Pay for someone to clean our hacked website so we can
that sucks.
get it off the maintenance page. At least we have a functioning maintenance page that allows people to go to Patreon and listen to all the episodes.
Yeah, you can still leave a speak pipe, which, by the way, please, if you have any stories, we're coming up to the Halloween episodes soon, and
we're kind of in the Halloween episodes. We're getting in there right now.
Right, but I mean, the next couple episodes, I really want to do, as many call-in stories as possible. So if you're out there and you got some spooky stories you want to lay on us,
elucidate
leave
us.
a speak pipe.
Yeah, leave us a pipe and speak into it.
Yes. Anyway, getting back to
we introduced this as the Dogman episode, and a lot of people are probably like, what the frick is a Dogman?
Explain to me what a Dogman is, Jeremy.
Well, okay. Now, I'm no expert
on
the Dogman.
Bologna.
I'm a Dogman enthusiast, I might say. I'm a hobbyist in the Dogman realm.
This is one of your favorite topics, though.
Yeah, I like it because it's just so fringy. It's so magical. It's so... Well, the cool thing about it is it's so bizarre and it's so almost laughable, but at the same time, there's so much witness testimony, so many reports that have come out about this seemingly ridiculous thing. So essentially, if you don't know what a Dogman is, or you've never heard of that term, and it sounds crazy, it's because it does sound crazy, but essentially, your typical Dogman that people are supposed...
Your typical Dogman.
People are supposedly encountering is the... like a werewolf-ish looking creature. So a upright walking canid bipedally prowling the streets or the graveyards.
Might sound like that.
Mm-hmm. Probably does.
Probably does sound like that.
So there are actually three types of dogmen that have been reported. You got the one, which is like the werewolfy kind of fella. Freaky, 7 to 10 feet, depending on the person who's giving the testimony. Then there's type 2, which is, it's kind of like a Bigfootish, where it's more man-figured as far as it doesn't have the hocks, it doesn't have the backward bent
leg
legs.
things.
Yeah,
it has backward bent legs.
Well, the typical, probably the most typical Dogman is an upright walking wolf, essentially.
like a dog.
Backward bent legs.
Yeah, like hocks, just like a
insect almost.
Well, like a dog. Jake's legs.
That is weird. Yeah, I never even thought about that, but you're totally right.
He doesn't have knees. Picture Jake, your dog walking around with little knees in front of him.
That sounds more realistic in my mind, but when I think about it, obviously, it's okay.
Because they lift up like that.
It'd be weird if I went and saw Jake now and I realized that he actually did have knees. He's just crawling.
This doesn't have front knees though.
They're backward facing.
Not the front legs though.
Yeah.
The front, he has front knees.
So they go up like this, right? And then the back one kind of bends back and then in.
Back legs have backwards, but the front have front knees.
They all work the same. If they were the opposite direction, they look like, what's that DARPA robot?
Oh yeah, they look like the DARPA thing.
No, but his front legs have this.
I feel like we should pull up a picture of a dog.
I feel like everyone's wondering if John actually has a dog. He doesn't know.
Well, it's kind of hard to picture if you've never thought about it before. It's kind of hard to imagine.
I can see his back legs, it's a big bend in the back.
Yeah.
But in the front, I just see his... I can't picture his front.
It does come back, yeah.
He does have, in the lower third part, more of a knee sort of fixture.
Yeah, it's like the laurel thing kind of thing.
Yeah, because I guess dog legs. Anyway.
Yeah, so dog
I was
legs.
thinking about it and
Anyway, so that's your typical one. Imagine a wolf standing up, erect.
Gotcha. Erect.
And then you have the third, I guess the other kind of dogman that I think of, one of the more fascinating ones to me, honestly, is something that's referred to historically as the cynocephali, which is...
Wait, don't get into that already.
I won't. I'm just a third type. It's another type of potential dogman, where it's essentially a human dude you might see at the gas station, except he has a dog head. So...
okay.
But is there hair on the body, too? Yeah, it's a whole...
typical guy you'd see at the gas station, but a dog head.
Well, that's where you typically see other people.
Okay.
Is
at
gas
the gas station. Or anywhere in the world.
That's the only place I see people.
Yeah, okay.
It's the gas station. That's where I get my groceries.
That's true. That's the only place you really go most of the time,
the grocery store is so much farther down the road. I just go
to the gas station and back for Jeremy.
Yeah, that's where people are, right?
Okay. So there's three types of dogmen.
Yeah, essentially.
And
again, I'm not an expert. If you want an expert, go to dogmanencounters.com.
So what is a dogman? I mean, the head is typically, there's it's short pointed ears,
yes,
right?
there is a typical, this is what's interesting too about these sightings is you have a consistent kind of reporting about these, what people experience. You have very German Shepherd. Like sometimes there are actually weird encounters where people report seeing more of a flattened face, almost more like a pug
I wouldn't even mention that.
Mastiff.
It sounds so ridiculous to me.
But I think they're
nothing more terrifying than a man with a pug face running at you in the forest. I think I'd laugh.
But no, typically it's like a German Shepherd type look or jackal, like Anubis. You know, are you familiar with the ancient the
Stargate?
Yes, Anubis. Made up in the movie Stargate. They're originally from Egypt.
The Egyptian god of death. I know,
but
yeah, Stargate was a good reference. Yeah, great movie. But yeah, ding. But anyways, its ears are straight up.
Okay.
Like what I'm doing with my hands right now, straight up ears. Almost like bobcat ears in the sense that a lot of them report having like little tufts of hair on the tips of the ears. Very detailed reports, and a lot of them are consistent, which is what I find so fascinating about this, is you have these consistent reports of this just bizarre creature from all different kinds of people, from all walks of life.
And all over the world.
And all over the
more
world.
we looked into this, the more we realized, like, yeah, this is a phenomenon that stretches all over now. And there's a map now I found, like an interactive map where it lists not only the locations of sightings, but it actually has the gathered detailed accounts from each location. And the crazy part is a lot of them are in Ohio, which is interesting.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
A lot of stuff in Ohio, man.
Ouija boards started in Ohio.
Ouija boards. Okay, so Ohio is the second most reported sightings of Bigfoot.
Well, I've actually heard
second or third.
Fourth.
Well, from the producer we talked to on the...
I thought they said it was the fourth.
He said third. It was California, Oregon.
Washington and Oregon.
Still pretty far up there, though.
Anyways, we're right up there.
Also, the first, I think, Dogman encounter was Silver Creek. For one of the first big encounters.
Right down the street?
Yeah, right down the street, Silver Creek Park.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it, that's not the first encounter.
No, it's not the first. Yeah, I mean, because it goes back
It's the first
forever.
one I've actually heard of.
It was
and
a big
I thought it was
one.
bizarre because I jogged there.
It was a well-reported one. And we've got the Frogman in Cincinnati. We got a lot of stuff here. Melon Heads.
Ohio's a weird
It's a mysterious, magical place.
It is. The
if
veil
you
is
haven't been
thin
to
here.
Ohio, come visit Ohio.
Yeah, there's a
It's
lot
great
here
place.
if you like the cryptid.
We are sponsored by the Ohio Tourism Board, so we do have to put that out there.
Hey, that's a good idea. There's the Minerva. I actually looked into this a little bit because I kept coming across these Dogman reports in Ohio and this other stuff. But yeah, there's Minerva Monster. There's the Python and Peninsula. There's
Peninsula, Ohio.
Yeah, there's there's a
lot of weird stuff.
20 different, and I wrote a list. I'm not going to go through the list, but maybe we'll do an episode on Ohio monsters because they're really everywhere.
In Newcomers Town.
Yeah.
If you haven't been, again, come to Ohio. It's just a great place.
I like it.
It's okay.
Mm-hmm. It's the heart of it all.
I'm thinking of moving, actually.
I'm thinking of leaving.
Yes. And that is all. Where were we at?
Oh, Dogman. So you went through the different, kind of the three different types that you've researched, right?
Yeah. So that's essentially a dog. And I'm sure most people at home are thinking, that's ridiculous.
Well, yeah.
Lunacy?
Can I give you my...
Ooh. That's good, John.
Yeah, that does tie in.
Coming from turning into a wolf at a full moon. That's actually where that...
Lunacy.
That's where the word lunatic comes from.
Right.
Is the idea that the moon makes people crazy.
Is he in slow motion?
It's a little drawn out.
But yeah, when you first started talking about Dogman a couple years ago or something, I think my response was, what?
That was my initial response.
Yeah, like, what?
Too.
Okay, dude. I was like, you got to draw a line. But it's funny because you think about it and like, it's the name that makes it sound so silly. When you consider the idea that there is potentially, whether you want to think like...
Werewolf almost sounds more credible than Dogman.
Well, that's the thing. And werewolves, I think for most people, that's one of the monsters that they, kind of scratch off the list of potentially being real. Like at an earlier age, I think you get, I think the last ones to go are probably like Bigfoot, if you're into that kind of stuff. But to me, like you start to think about it, if you take off the name Dogman and you call it like
an upright walking canid.
Right. Well, it doesn't seem that crazy, especially when you start listening to accounts and you read throughout history of all these crazy accounts of almost exactly the same sort of creature. And then you hear from a lot of people too who've had these encounters, like they don't. First of all, until like the past year or so, there was no place to even give these reports. Right. It's not like Bigfoot where like there's organizations that collect stories. People who see what to them looks like a werewolf have a hard time telling people that they saw a werewolf because no one's going to fucking believe you.
Yeah. You think for
it's less believable than a ghost.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's up there with vampires as far as like an actual like flying bat, blood-sucking vampire.
Yeah,
it's like you're
like you saw a deer or a bear. Like you didn't see an upright walking canid.
You convince yourself that, the
saw
first thing,
black bear.
No matter how much you believe in this stuff, honestly, like the first thing I do when I hear something weird that goes bump in the night in my apartment, the first thing I'll do is think like,
it's a Dogman.
It's a Dogman. No. First thing I'll do is like, okay, that's something fell over in the laundry room. Probably something was resting strangely and it just got knocked over. Instantly.
As you cuddle your pillows tightly.
I'm not a scaredy cat.
I think
that's Chris.
I think demon immediately.
Chris immediately thinks demon.
Immediately.
But no, I think most people say, well, it's human nature to like have imagination and, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, most people will rationalize something like that first thing. Because you don't want to be scared, like you're not going to be like,
you don't want to be traumatized.
Yeah, right. And you don't want to overreact.
Right.
So most people will talk themselves out of being afraid of something like that. So I think if you think that through and you think also statistically, imagine you did see something and days go by and you think, especially if it wasn't like something so blatant, something so traumatizing, if you saw something run across the road, I'm sure over time, especially, you'd start to say, well, I guess I'm not really sure that what I saw could have been this, could have been that. So imagine for all of the sightings that potentially happen, you could think maybe 1 in 100 are actually reported to like the, National Dogman Research.
But if they're from 7 to 10 feet tall, like, what else could possibly be that?
Right. Well, but what I'm saying is people, I think...
No, I know what you're saying.
I was mistaken.
Yeah, obviously.
And what's interesting, I never thought about this in this way before, but what's interesting about that is, anytime you experience something anomalous or seemingly insane, you do like, time goes by, you're like, did I really see it that way? But the funny thing is like, you're most fresh about what you saw immediately after a situation happens. That's why when there's a crime that occurs, the investigators want to talk to the people who are involved right after, because those details start to drift.
Yeah.
So why... so when you start to think about it a year or two later and those details start to fade, then you question what you saw.
Right.
It seems almost counterintuitive.
And you start to fill in the blanks with other...
Well, it could have been, I guess it could have, but when it happened right after, it seemed like it was definitely a, running 8-foot-tall Dogman creature.
Right. So moving forward with that thought, like we can at least suppose that there are many more sightings than that we've ever heard about.
Yeah,
whether they
for
are
sure.
even reported.
And there's been, thousands of these sightings? Maybe more?
Oh, throughout time, absolutely.
Well, and it's interesting because when I first started, like I came across this accidentally. I don't even remember how, but I remember the first one I heard about was Silver Creek, Ohio, which is, 15 minutes from where we live, which is bizarre.
Is that in Doylestown?
It's in, just north of Doylestown off 21 towards Wadsworth for all of you Ohio fans. But it was bizarre. I was like, okay, that's ridiculous. Like a werewolf. I was like, first of all, I was like, what is a Dogman? And then I listened to the encounter, and if it wasn't for the sincerity of the witness testimony coming from so many different people, I would have definitely just written this off, but being able to hear people talk about this, and you can hear people audibly shaken. It's almost like people reliving something that happened to them in the war. Like you can hear the PTSD that people experience. Like people go through this, and for a lot of these people, it's a form of therapy to just talk about it. Like if you hear, there's the place where I first heard about this and where what I listen to now, it's Dogman Encounters Radio. It's like great if you just want to like creep yourself out and fall asleep listening to something, listen to that. Because what's cool about it, unlike a lot of channels and podcasts and stories where they just like read stories they read on Reddit. Like anyone could have been making up these stories. Yeah. These are individual voices, people calling in, supposedly reporting these stories. And you can just hear like either this person which I really don't think so, but the guy who's behind it, Vic Cundiff is his name. He collects all of these stories. People call in on his radio show, and there's no way that like all these people are actors. There's no way that all these people are just seeking attention or all crazy. I really do believe after listening to the hundreds that he has on there that there's no way that this is. I feel like there's something to this that people are experiencing.
It's such a fringe thing too.
It is
like
so
there's
fringe.
no way that like that many people would be that weirdly
interested,
attracted,
exactly,
to
and compelled
like
to like try to.
Well, it makes sense, like because I think his channel blew up pretty quickly, and I think it's probably because you think about it, like there's no outlet for people who have these stories to go somewhere. Right. Then you start once there is an outlet and it starts to get some exposure, all of a sudden you're going to get a flood of, if this is an actual phenomenon that's occurring, you're going to get a flood of people coming to you to tell these stories because there's nowhere else to go to share with people.
Well, and you have Google now, so if you do see a freaking werewolf or something like that, or an upright walking thing with a dog head that's 8 feet tall or whatever, you're going to Google it. And if you Google something like that, now there's somewhere that is ready to receive your story. So now we're finally getting a collection of these stories on a regular basis. Whereas it used to be like you'd hear reports in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And that's
technology's bringing it to the forefront.
Yeah, exactly. And doing some research, you see like in the 70s, there were some werewolf sightings, different parts of Ohio, and that's just Ohio. And like you get these little blips in the newspaper when someone, has the balls to actually talk about what they experienced to a news agency, which was rare, I'm sure, if this was something that was encountered. So after enough of that happens, you get these little speckled accounts. Now that we're in the technology age where you can share things readily, you're starting to see like it's a phenomenon that's stretching across not just the U.S., but across the world. I think Europe has a huge number of this kind of stuff that happens too.
Yeah. It gives it a little more credibility because it's so niche and the technology is allowing it to sort of
bubble up.
Yeah, exactly.
Populate.
Which is... I think that gives it more credibility in a weird way, like especially how you talk about how it's so like the people that talk, you can hear it in their voices. There's no way they're hired actors.
Right. And maybe if you wanted to make that argument, a few could be, but I mean, I think you can tell when someone is...
We're not biased here.
Is acting. And these are people that are like, well, are they all like, first of all, who's going to spend the money to hire 300 actors for and they're all anonymous too. There's no credits. Most of these there aren't even like full names. So if it's someone just seeking attention, they're not going to get that. A lot of these people are like, I'm a doctor. I live in this town, or I live in a town in like Northeast West Virginia, but I don't want to use my name because of my practice or whatever. Like it's not people that are giving their full names looking for attention. Especially from the majority of these encounters.
Right.
So I think that definitely lends some credibility. But
for sure.
Yeah, if we want to, I have a couple clips here. If we want to play,
like an actual
encounter.
Caller, yeah.
Yeah. So this is.
Let me play the first one.
Yeah, do the first one. So this is. I'll set it up a little bit here.
Okay.
So this is from Dogman Encounters Radio. I recommend checking out the episode. We'll link in our show notes specifically what episode it is, but I think it's 117. But we'll link it. So the kind of setup for the story is that this happened to this guy in the 70s. A very colorful character. I love this encounter. It's fascinating the way he describes it because it's like this interview specifically. If you go to the original interview, we've just taken a few minutes out of the interview, but the original interview, it's like almost 2 hours long. So there's so much like ancillary information, so many extra details. Some of it is not even necessary. Like he goes into details about the kind of car he had. He was obviously like a car guy, like a motorhead or whatever, describing like his cherry bomb muffler that he put on it and all this stuff. But anyways, he goes into all this extra detail.
Yeah, that kind of gives it more credibility because it's crystallized in his mind because of the experience.
Exactly. Like it's still so raw to him because it was such a traumatic experience, and you can hear it in his voice. But so to set up the story, we just took from the climax of the story pretty much, but he's driving through a rural country in West Virginia, kind of in a hollow. He says holler, but like a hollow, kind of like a valley area, surrounded on both sides by fields, cornfields, and he's driving down this windy road. And at this point in the story, he's just banking on this pretty steep curve, so he's kind of limited to how fast he can be driving on it without losing control. And it's at this point that he sees this figure in the field, and it's a bright lit night, full moon, just like last night here actually. And this figure's like kind of running through the field. At first, you can't tell what it is, and then as it's moving and moving, you realize it's running on two legs, coming towards him. And he realizes that at the speed it's going, and at the trajectory it's going to intercept his vehicle, which is starting to concern him a little bit. And right as it's approaching him, he's getting into the steep curve, so he can't like accelerate. He can't speed to the speed he'd want to go to get away from whatever this thing is.
And you don't want to stop because this thing's running towards you.
Yeah, and you don't want to risk getting into an accident. So this whole encounter that we've cut out here takes place, I think he said, in the matter of like 20 seconds maybe. But he has so much detail in it because of obviously how real and visceral it was to him. But so that's pretty much what's going to happen in this clip, is this thing's about to intercept him on this windy late night road. And he can't really get away from it because he's in this curve. And if he tries to accelerate, he risks crashing.
And then being eaten.
Right. So that's pretty much where we pick up on the story.
By an Anubis.
I think it's in the 60s or 70s, I'm pretty sure, when he's talking about.
Cool. Let's check it out.
And, this thing keeps drawing closer and closer to me. And I just can't make out what this thing is. It don't look like anything that I've ever seen. It gets close to the barbed wire fence on the right-hand side. And I think, well, maybe it's going to slow down or maybe it'll veer off where it won't run into that barbed wire and it'll turn aside out of my way. But it didn't do that. Instead of doing that, this thing sped up. And instead of turning aside, it jumped right over the fence. And it landed on my side of the fence in between the ditch line and the fence. And then it took another bound. And the next thing I know, this thing is out in the road. I mean, it's right next to my vehicle, and it scared me so bad that I just not thinking, instinctually, I just jerked the wheel to the left and went over as far as I dared into the left-hand lane. And this thing has started running right along beside of me. Like I said, I had the windows rolled down, but I had cherry bomb mufflers on that car, and if you know what they're like, they're loud. But yet, at the same time, I could hear the nails of this thing, the toenails, click, 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 clacking on the road as it ran along beside me. And I could see it good now. And I really didn't want to look at its face. I really didn't want to see its face. But I couldn't help it. It's just like I couldn't help myself. I had to. And, I mean, this thing was tall. It had to be at least 7 feet tall. It towered over the top of my car. And it was running along beside me. It couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 feet off the passenger side of my car. Just, I mean, right even with my passenger side window. I could see it just as clear as day. Oh, God. This thing, it looked like a gigantic wolf, or maybe something like a German Shepherd or something like that, but its ears were different. They were slim, and they were high and pointed, like I said, on top, and had kind of like tusks sticking out. And, at first, it's like it's not even seeing me. It's like it's not even paying attention to me in my car, like it don't even notice us. Or like it just don't even care about me being there in that car as it's running along. This thing had arms. If it didn't have them bent and wasn't pumping them as it ran, this thing's arms would have hung down below its hocks. And I know that if it wanted to, this thing could have reached right in my car window and right over to the driver's side, from the passenger side, and this thing could have grabbed me. And it could have drugged me right out of the car. If it wanted to, it could have just ripped my head off. Or it could have leaned in my car window, and it could have bit my head off. I don't know. I know it could have, and I wanted to get out of there, but I didn't dare because I was in this steep curve, and I knew that if I hit the gas, this car probably wasn't going to be able to handle the curve, and it was going to run off in the ditch, and I was going to wreck, and I was going to be there alone with this thing, and I was going to be at its mercy. And for a little while, it just ran along beside me and just didn't pay me any attention. But that didn't last. Just slowly, seemed like it took forever, but just slowly, it started to turn its head, and it looked at me. I couldn't help it. I looked full in its eyes. I wish that I hadn't. I wish I'd never seen it. I wish I could erase the picture of what I saw from my mind, but I can't. This thing had great big black eyes, and I couldn't see any kind of pupil. I couldn't see any kind of white or anything like that. All I could see was black, and then they just looked as black to me as a bottomless pit. They just seemed soulless to me, and I just had a sense of evil that came over me. And this thing, when it looked at me, it was like that it could look through me and look to my very soul. And like I said, I just felt like I had been touched by evil. I don't know how else to explain it. And there was such a fear. And I wanted to scream or to holler out or do something. But it just seemed like my mouth just dried up like cotton, and there wasn't a sound that would come out. And I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to get away from this thing, but I couldn't because I was afraid I was going to wreck. And then it came closer. And it leaned down, it leaned in, and mind you, this thing is running beside my car the whole time. And it stuck its head in my window, and it grabbed hold of my door with its right hand. And that, I don't know how to describe it as other than that. It was a hand. This thing had huge hands, and it had long black nails, maybe about 3 inches long, 2 or 3 inches long, long black thick nails. And this thing put its right hand on my door, and I could hear it. It put its left hand on my doorknob, and it was jerking at my door, and it was jiggling my door handle. But this thing was leaning in my window, and it was looking right at me. And it seemed like that it curled its lips back, and I know it snarled at me, but I don't really remember hearing it. All I could hear was the sound of my engine and the sound of its toenails as it ran along beside my vehicle, going clack, 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 clack on the pavement. And it breathed on me. Seemed like I could smell blood and maybe decaying flesh as it breathed on me. It was horrible. And I thought I was dead. I thought this was the end of me. I thought I was a goner. I thought I was a dead man for sure. At just about that time, the curve ended, and I came into a straightaway. And I just hit the gas and pushed it to the floor, and I took out of there. I took my eyes off of it, and I looked ahead. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw it lose grip on my car door, and I saw its smells rake across the top of my door. And its head disappeared from my window. And as I drove away from it, as I pulled away from it, I looked in my rearview mirror, and I could see it getting smaller and smaller as it began to slow down. And the last thing I remember, the last thing that I saw, this thing veered off to the right again and jumped over the fence and disappeared into that field. I've never been so scared in all of my life. I mean, it was just absolutely horrifying.
Wow. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty vivid explanation.
Well, yeah, and I cut it. I mean, that was even edited down because there was even more built into that, just that bit that I had to chop it down.
Really,
it's just so much detail and so much like obviously very real for this person. You know?
It sounded, I mean, it would be hard to hire an actor like that to describe the,
right.
I mean.
And then like 100 or 250 more actors for other stories. It just seems like.
Yeah, I mean.
Pretty compelling.
Yeah, it just seems, it seems like people are experiencing something, and there's no way to like, you know, in West Virginia, bears don't generally run at 20 miles per hour on two legs, you know, smoothly hop over barbed wire.
And try to get into your car as you're driving.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows for sure exactly.
Right.
People can build, you know, scenarios into their head as things go on in time, but it's definitely a very interesting story.
Well, let's take it like, okay, so with suspending disbelief for a second, like let's assume that this guy encountered this thing, and let's assume it is as he described. And let's assume, like what he said, how if it seemed like its arms almost went down below his hocks or whatever, right? Which I guess is like below like the knees. Like this is how long this
doggy knees.
Doggy knees. So, like he said, if this thing wanted to, it could have reached in and grabbed him
from the
passenger side. So it's interesting because in a lot of these accounts you hear, and not just the Dogman situation, the Dogman encounters, but also Bigfoot sightings, other things, there seems to be a lot of times, I think especially with Dogman.
Yeah,
but there seems to be this sort of why didn't it? Like if it obviously could have done some damage to this person. It seems like well within its ability to destroy this person.
Yeah, why
or the car itself.
Like so to me it's like there always seems to be this lingering feeling of like what it wants from you. Is fear.
It wants to feed off that. And that, you're right. Because
it's sort of that continuous thread between a lot of this phenomenon.
Spooky.
Yeah.
Spooky.
Other than like, I mean, I've heard a lot of these encounters, and a lot of them seem to be on a road or while driving, that kind of thing. But a lot of them also are while you're at home or while you're camping. And in those situations, you're completely prey.
What's weird though is that I mean I've listened to a lot of these too, and it seems like no one ever gets killed.
That's what I'm saying. Well,
okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
you're right though. But then that's where I'm going. Like it does seem like
feeding off the fear.
Yeah, like especially if you're in a tent or in an RV or in a house, right? And there's like a 7 to 10 foot tall wolf creature built like Hugh Jackman's Wolverine times 5.
Yeah,
modestly, and they're at your window, right? And they're tapping. They're tapping.
Hello.
And they're just trying to get you to look. And this is another thing too. And I have one more encounter that we'll play in a little bit, but
maybe after the break.
There's a theme in this too, where, and that story you'll hear, but in other stories, they're trying to get you to engage with them,
like looking in the eyes.
Yes,
sort of
and then
thing.
they have this. A lot of them are reported as grinning, or just smiling with this feeling of pure evil and menace that just fills you with dread and terror. And yeah, I mean, the argument could be made that whether or not they are physical creatures or they are, maybe non-corporeal or whatever,
transdimensional,
there could be something that they do get something out of terrifying people. And that's not to say that they don't, if they are real, that they don't kill, because there have been encounters, especially in the land between the lakes, which is an area in Kentucky between two lakes that has like 300 miles of coastline. And there's been sightings for hundreds of years there with the native peoples, early French trappers and the Attentions. We'll get to that in the history section, but there was an encounter there, supposedly, allegedly, where a family was murdered, destroyed by a creature like this.
It seems like the next logical step.
Yeah, and I think an argument can be made that, well, you don't hear about them, ever really killing anybody.
About them.
Would you hear about it? If you're sitting in your camping spot and
well, exactly. Like so, all the reports are here.
You're scrolling on the ground in your blood. A wolf killed me.
Or then it's like a bear attack or something.
Right? Yeah. How would you know?
Yeah.
And if they cover it up.
This phenomenon where there is like this, where it seems like they want the fear. I think that most likely, if this phenomenon is based in reality, I think that absolutely it seems like there is opportunity for these things to be attacking, and they don't. So they're probably drawing some sort of, food source or energy or whatever. We've talked about that with other sort of phenomena in the past. But
or they're full.
But absolutely, like there could be accounts where there is encounters with fatal consequences, but of course you're not going to hear about it. Right. It's like that.
It's like
that great. I mean, it's not really related, but that great urban legend of girl comes home and
that happened to our babysitter's friend.
Or goes back, of course, happened to our babysitter. Everybody's babysitter's friend this happened to, where they go back in their apartment because they forgot their keys, and they leave. They come home, and then written on the wall in blood is, "Good thing you didn't turn on the lights." Yeah. But it's that. Sorry.
Urban legend.
I think it's a good time.
No, it was more towards the babysitter, like, I'm troubled.
I'm troubled. Are you guys ready for a break? Let's take a quick break.
We've gone a long time. Let's take a little break.
Before we take a break, let's talk about
the unicorn episode.
Yeah, so on Patreon, like we mentioned earlier, we do have our first unicorn episode, which is our nice way of saying that we have a very
it's not a gender fluid episode.
Not necessarily. It's more of a
which is what isn't that the spirit animal?
Shut up, Jeremy.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that.
Unicorn is just like a it's a mythical, out of the box, beautiful creature that cannot be defined.
Well, I termed it the unicorn episodes. I turned it unicorn episodes because
it's to do it.
It's
Chris gets frustrated.
The unicorn episode.
This is where Chris starts mentally marking the markers where he's going to edit the show. The move I don't like. He said he interrupted me here.
No, I don't do that.
You can hear his internal dialogue.
Anyway, the unicorn episode is named thusly because it is a. That's right. But it's a sort of mythological episode where only if you're on Patreon do you get to witness the beauty of a long or.
Can you make this in a way that isn't so airy-fairy?
Okay, so a Patreon episode, or so the unicorn
people
episode.
Understand what the hell you're talking about?
It's an extra episode. It's just called the unicorn episode.
Okay, and you have to.
I just gave it a mythological name because it's not seen by a lot of people.
I like the unicorn. Yeah. I like that idea.
And in order to get it, you have to get
$3. $3 a month.
Or you could be super generous, like
Trisha.
Some of our
give whatever
Patreon
you want
like Trisha.
to help us get on our legs, our unicorn legs.
Get on our legs.
Anyway, over the break, we're going to play just a random clip from the episode, and
that you're all missing.
So here's the snippet.
From the unicorn episode.
Enjoy, everybody.
Unicorn episode.
Who knows? I mean, so much of it can just be,
right?
Conjecture. But there's so many.
Can we all just go back to Boy Meets World?
Yeah. Topanga, where you been?
Where's the flat Earth? Has anyone seen Sean? I don't know. Let's go to the lunchroom. Now we're in the lunchroom.
Lunchroom at Bayside High. That's the wrong show. We're at the Max. Meet us at the Max, Lisa.
Hey, Slater. What's up, bro?
I love how all these 90s characters have the same voice.
Hey, I'm Mr. Belding.
Hey, I'm Mr. Belding. I'm an older man. I'm the principal. I promise I won't harass you. Let's go to the principal's office.
That's the modern lesson. Remember when what was the chick, Jessie? Spano took all the speed pills?
Yeah. What is she saying? Is when she has the breakdown?
I forget.
She's like, I'm so excited. I'm so scared.
That's so sad. I'm sorry, we shouldn't joke about overdosing on caffeine pills.
No shit, dude. That was we were worried about them. The only thing people talked about back then was caffeine pills and whether or not people should be allowed to have euthanasia.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, saviors of...
Welcome back.
Welcome back. High intensity.
We should say, so that preview for the unicorn episode, get on Patreon, that was a clip that really had nothing to do with the actual topic of the show, but I think
was
still entertaining. So that topic of that show was Saturn Death Cult, which we talked about on our regular episodes, saying we were going to be talking about it eventually. So that's the episode. Saturn Death Cult, sanitation on YouTube.
Sanitation.
Otherwise known as censorship. We got into that a little bit on that episode. And we talked a lot about Boy Meets World. So
check it out.
Yeah.
Patreon that shit.
Patreon.
It's worth it. Yeah, to get there, you go to our website, beliefhole.com, and click on the Patreon button. Right? Is that how it works?
Yep. Yes, that is how it works.
Okay.
Go to beliefhole.com if you feel like donating. We will have some merchandise coming up soon.
Yeah, we got some pretty sick designs already in the works. So hopefully by the time this airs, there'll be a sweet shop.
Well, let's not promise anything.
I said hopefully.
And this Wednesday,
we will
we're going to have
having some merchandise at some point in the future. We're going to get that rolling.
I'm going to say by tomorrow at noon.
Maybe a mug or two.
Ooh.
That sounds fun.
Drink your Belief Hole juice.
Maybe a koozie? Perhaps?
No, probably no koozies.
Maybe a slip. Maybe
definitely some sweatshirts, definitely some t-shirts.
Hoodies. Thongs.
For sure. Hopefully in time for the weather, it's getting cooler.
Yeah, you want some Belief Hole gear for Halloween.
No flannels.
What?
Come on now.
I'd wear a flannel.
A Belief Hole flannel?
Yeah.
Who has designs on a flannel?
You just put the little
hardcore
logo
rockers
on the shirt like you work here.
Maybe. I don't think I've ever seen a design
on
a flannel.
Well, it's because we're starting it.
I feel like you would sell a patch to put on a flannel.
Let's start with a hoodie and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And if we want to reach out to mugs, I like
also,
the mugs.
yeah, feel free to send your own designs.
I like a mug idea.
Yeah, mugs would be good. I'd drink out of a Belief Hole mug.
Hell yeah.
I feel like I'd be drinking knowledge.
Knowledge
and laughs.
Drinking that knowledge.
Knowledge and laughs.
Anyway, so back to the topic at hand. We're talking about therianthropes.
What are therianthropes, Chris?
Therianthropes are beings that are... Is that necessarily something that transforms into something? Or
shapeshifter.
Is it a therianthrope, or is a therianthrope a mixture of animals and human?
No, it's something transform. Well, according to the Complete Idiot's Guide to the Paranormal.
It's different from a chimera, which is half animal, half human kind of thing.
Yeah.
So a therianthrope does transform for sure.
I can look it back up in my book here if you want me to.
Well, yes, you should.
I have a book here. This book is called The Complete Idiot's Guide to the Paranormal. And I thought, now that we're doing a show on the paranormal conspiracy.
Yeah, nothing sounds more professional than reading from The Idiot's Guide.
Right. I have my Idiot's Guide to Conspiracy.
We are your go-to source.
No, I was just in the library and I saw this book and I thought it was kind of hilarious. The Idiot's Guide to the Paranormal. Mm-hmm. But it oddly has like a lot of really in-depth tidbits.
It made me feel like an idiot.
They're going to take the best parts of all of it and sum it up for you, right?
I don't know. Are you selling these books, John?
I just think that's what they would do, right?
Well,
they're going to take the most interesting tidbits of everything.
I just thought it would be like a surface level kind of dive into the paranormal.
Like if you're fans of the paranormal and you're armchair researchers like we are, I would assume that I'd open up that book and not see anything new.
Right.
But when I opened it up, I was like, wow, there's actually a lot of information in here that I feel like I should know.
For instance, I thought that the silver bullet to kill a werewolf, I was under the impression that this was a movie invention. The concoction of a silver bullet to kill a lycanthrope or a werewolf was made in the movies. I think there's some movies in the 1930s. There was the Wolfman, right? Wolf's Bane and all that. And but apparently, according to the Idiot's Guide to the Paranormal, I'll read, and I quote, "The use of a silver bullet as a weapon against werewolves first appeared in the 1760s, with the lore surrounding the well-documented case of the beast of Gévaudan."
Gévaudan.
Oh, is it Gévaudan? Mm-hmm. Apparently, you're familiar with the case?
Yes.
One story claims a local clergyman even actually killed the beast with a silver bullet. Another version claims a specially made silver bullet was blessed or enchanted by a priest or sorcerer and then given to a skilled hunter who took the beast down. So that's interesting. I always thought the silver bullet was a movie invention.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But yeah, it's the beast of Gévaudan where that started.
In real history.
In real
Gévaudan.
Gévaudan. In real French history, yeah. It was in the 1700s. It was, I think, in the 1760s, there was a 3-year period where, according to different accounts, up to 300 people were killed by this beast.
300
pack
people?
of beasts, yeah. Mostly by, ripping the throat out.
So this was where the werewolf came from, the idea?
Well, I mean, the transforming werewolf idea came, I think, some of the earlier accounts were 1500s, but this was a bona fide historical account that happened where it was 50 square miles. 300 people were slaughtered by arguably one or a couple of these creatures.
Gigantic wolf.
Yeah, but they caught it. I mean, eventually, Well, like you read, the final guy to shoot it. And this is the thing. The king had sent out like over the course of 3 years, noblemen, hunters, and things like that, royal hunters, to take this thing down. And it had been shot and stabbed multiple times. Got up and ran away in front of people. Walked on 2 legs. In some accounts, which is interesting because it reminds me of the Dogman kind of thing.
Well, this is where the term werewolf comes from, even though it wasn't a transformative thing necessarily at this point. It wasn't a therianthrope or lycanthrope, but it was the werewolf.
Well, this is where it spread to such a large degree because it was, But yeah, that one dude killed it with a silver bullet was like the final stroke.
Well,
so that's where you get
that. Not just from the movies.
Right. Yeah, it comes from that, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
This thing was huge though, I guess. So there's a lot of ideas like what it could have. Direwolf as an example, because I think it was like 6 or 7 feet.
Right. And direwolf is what, like a prehistoric wolf that
actually existed, and I'm not sure which period of time.
It went extinct.
Right.
This is 7 feet? Mm-hmm. Like long, like not standing on its legs. So this is just like
I'm assuming in length.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a big wolf.
That's a big wolf.
And
bigger than any of
terrifying.
the wolves in that area, or wolves that supposedly existed at that time.
Right.
So, and that was the creepiest
7
thing.
feet long wolf.
Yeah. And the creepy part was that there were a lot of the accounts of these like renowned hunters, these like, legit dudes would say they came upon it standing on 2 legs. And that it could actually run on 2 legs. So, just freaky.
Nightmare.
Yeah. And then you had a huge body count.
Right.
Of up to 200-300 people.
Yeah.
Gross.
Pretty nasty.
Well, that's interesting because that's like the lore of like that's where the werewolf started. And I know
not technically. I mean, that was the idea of the transforming werewolf.
Oh, it was earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is when that argued later on that this was a werewolf. It definitely it kind of spread the idea.
Yeah. Well, and it spread into the United States with the settling of the North American continent. You have because I know that there's the Michigan Dogman, right? That was in the 1800s. And that was an upright walking wolf dog creature. That's a famous one. But you also have the Land Between the Lakes, which I think I touched on earlier. But that's an interesting area because it's in, I think it's Kentucky or Michigan. Kentucky, yeah. And it's this stretch of land between 2 large bodies of water. And it goes throughout history of these sightings. And it's interesting because you have the corroboration of different groups of people coming in. You have the French settlers, the French trappers there that had the myth of the werewolf, right?
Right.
And they came in and they were experiencing something very real to them. That were stealing animals in the traps. That were, French trappers were supposedly going missing, disappearing, and they blamed these sightings of what they called werewolves. But in the same area, you had the Native Americans. Tribes lived there at the time, and they had the myth of the skinwalker, which were Native American witches that could turn into a wolf or to other creatures, and they were practicing black magic essentially. Neat. And at the same area, then you have the more modern like Dogman.
Yeah.
You have the account of that family that supposedly was in the 80s. And you've had
that was really all got slaughtered.
Yeah. So it was a camping trip. I don't know if they lived there or they were just camping, but there was a trailer involved. But essentially the authorities or campers, whoever came upon this grisly scene of these campers in the 80s, the whole family had been torn apart. So John, when you asked like, why are there no, we don't hear about attacks, right? Like people have survived attacks. Maybe it is just because if you were attacked, you would not survive.
Oh, right, yeah.
But, these would be blamed on bears or whatever. But in this account, allegedly, this is the story goes, as reported by former sheriffs and park rangers at the time, supposedly, that this family was torn to shreds. Like, I think there was a son and the parents that were found at the main campsite just ripped apart. Like a brutal murder scene. Some crazy animal must have done it, and then a little further away, pulled up into a tree for later feeding, supposedly, was the little girl. Had been pulled up into a tree and eaten. Yeah. This is the story.
But it's in that
same area.
Is there news accounts or anything? Police reports?
So the people that have come forward that have been supposedly like former highway patrol who worked in the area and a former sheriff that I heard report on this.
How do you explain it?
They said that they covered it up because it was bringing in so many hundreds of millions of dollars of tourism, that whole area, the Land Between the Lakes.
So this was a threat.
Who would camp?
Yeah.
Who would go camping in an area where supposedly a beast had torn apart a family? If that had been hit the papers.
That's pretty reckless to not warn people about something
Absolutely.
like that.
But then you hear about,
it's funny, though,
but then you have Missing 411 with David Paulides and all these people that go missing in the national parks. And the national parks official stance is they don't keep records of missing people.
Yeah.
Why not? I don't know. Maybe because people would not camp as much, not hike as much.
Thousands of people that have gone missing in the national parks, but they don't keep a record. It seems pretty crazy.
You would keep a record. It's millions of dollars that those people would lose, essentially, those park systems. And
you think that's the only reason?
No, but I think it's definitely a good motivator.
As flaky as that reason sounds, I could see it being possible. That's what
it's funded by the government regardless anyways, which is...
It's not free to get into a park. You still have to pay.
It just isn't like... For the amount of revenue you'd lose for the amount of people that possibly...
They die.
Yeah.
Well, remember Jaws? When the sheriff comes to town, he's a new sheriff, and then he keeps trying to like close the beach, and then
they can't let him close
the
it
asshole mayor is like, we can't close down the beach. It's the big festival.
We gotta sell the ice cream.
We gotta sell the ice cream.
It's our main source of
revenue. Wow, did he make a mistake?
You're a basic bitch.
Spoiler.
But yeah, so
no, it is interesting, and who knows? Like that's the interesting thing about these, dogmen or werewolves or anything like this. It's like
shapeshifters.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can kind of argue some of the stuff away, but I think it's the witness accounts, the eyewitness testimony that makes it seem very hard to do in every situation.
Well, and to jump into the history real quick,
give us some background.
Talk about some like actual historical evidence. I think it's interesting the way that the stuff comes together and correlates. Just a little historical references here. So you have it seems
didn't
like
work. I'm sorry.
I liked it.
You want it?
Yeah, it's getting spooky.
Okay.
Spook it up.
So you have accounts all throughout history, especially in early history, in Greek and Roman history. You have accounts that range in the areas of like India, Libya, Asia, North Africa, even Europe. But I think one of the early...
Accounts of what?
Accounts of, I'm sorry. So to get into the history, we really want to talk about the cynocephali.
Yeah.
Now
It's a sexy term.
The cynocephali are dog-headed men. So cyno meaning dog.
Never mind, it's not sexy anymore.
Cephalus meaning of the head. Just the tip, perhaps. And
just the tip.
The cynocephali is really where you get into like the history of the potential concept of the dog-headed man or the upright walking canid. You have the earliest depictions of these things, this tribe of dog-headed people, the cynocephali in Libya, carved in on rock carvings in the cliffside and the rocks, on boulders and stuff. And it's interesting because it's like you have these depictions right along with regular animals in the area. You have rhinoceros.
Mm-hmm. Rhinoceri.
Hunting, you have people hunting rhinoceros, then you have like these dog-headed figures that are hunting extinct animals that existed. Like there's an animal called the auroch, which is like an extinct version of like the ox or the wild cattle at the time. But it's interesting when you have these depictions of existing animals at the time, known existing animals.
Right, next to something that's supposedly
that's interacting with these animals, these dog-headed men that are hunting these beasts. And you look at it and you're like, okay, well, that's real. I'm going to decide this isn't real because I've never seen it. We don't have a scientific record.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's right along. So it's interesting when we look in history and we take people seriously, like when Herodotus, right? First.
Good old Herodotus.
First historian. That's where we get history from. But
his name comes from, does history come from the name Herodotus?
Maybe, potentially, but he's known as the father of history.
That's right.
And he has accounts of the cynocephali as a tribe of people, and so do his contemporaries like Ctesias, which is 5th century Greek philosopher. But he reported on the same thing, and it goes so detailed as to say like a nation or a civilization of over 120,000 dog-headed men that lived in the northern mountains of India, living in caves. They had no language. They would bark. They would communicate through barking, but they could understand the
that sounds ridiculous.
Right? But they could understand the Indian language.
Ghost?
Living in like that area, they could understand the language. And they even supposedly gave like tribute to the Indian king. So you have that coming from Ctesias, you have it coming from Herodotus.
And that's supposed to be historical record according to them.
It's historical record, but they put that right alongside of like encounters with other people that we know or
different cultures.
Indians from other cultures, but it's right nestled in there. But every time we find something anomalous in history,
right, we say,
well, that's not real because it's anomalous.
Right.
But they take everything else right next to it.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's fascinating. You have Roman historians, Roman authors like Claudius Aelian, who was an author in around the 3rd century, but he came across the same stuff, like independently verifying the civilization of dog-headed people. And it sounds crazy, but it's fun to think about because they're, like I mentioned earlier.
What about like the Egyptian stuff?
Egyptians, yeah. Anubis, and he wasn't the only one.
I mean, all they're like I don't know if they're technically hieroglyphs, are they? But like all the artwork and stuff, they have dog-headed men.
Mm-hmm. Right, there's the god Anubis, the god of the underworld or of death, embalming.
Yeah,
they have
a
lot of jackal-headed man, but at the same time there are other ones that I don't remember the names of now, but there are at least 2 other gods of war in Egyptian lore that were dog-headed men.
Did you run into any Egyptian history where these people talked about them? Like that they were a part of the culture, or were they just mythology?
Well, I honestly don't know that much about Egyptian history or what we know other than what's in the hieroglyphics. Like I'm not sure I know that the history of the ancient Egyptians is somewhat.
Do they have writing?
They had the hieroglyphics.
Okay, but they didn't have like
picture writing.
I think that's one of the hard things about that civilization. I don't know that much about it, but I feel like I remember them.
Well, you probably should have looked into that a little more.
I can't look at everything.
Where's your degree, sir?
Can't look at everything.
You are an armchair researcher.
But okay, but that's a good question. Like I know that. They have we always have good questions.
Well, it's interesting with the Egyptians because they have a lot of different
characters. It all goes back to the Illuminati.
A lot of different characters that are different kind of animal heads, right? The different kind of chimeras. Like you see bird-headed men and,
crocodile-headed men.
Stephen King
go back to the Sumerians with messing with the genetics, creating these alternate races.
Yeah, I remember there's people that claim that these people experimented with. They were like master geneticists.
Well, it's in Sumer, right?
Yeah.
Ancient Sumeria, that's a big...
So that would make
Babylon.
sense. Oh, can you imagine a crocodile head, man?
Terrifying.
That's an Egyptian guy too, I think.
Yeah, it is.
I forget his name.
But yeah, you're right. It is interesting because it's all this like North African, Middle Eastern area where you have these accounts of the different civilizations. Yeah, and Sumeria, right, where they supposedly mixed with genetics to create
who knows what kind of animal
if there was a small civilization that came from early genetic manipulation or whatever, obviously like as the world of man expanded and grew, these things would have been hunted to extinction, or would have the historians, the Greek and Roman historians they argued that they lived in high inaccessible areas, like in the mountains of India, where what made them so successful at surviving was because they were hard to get to. Mm-hmm. And other than being like, the details that are bizarre are just like, what I found interesting is I was reading articles about this from like, mainstream anthropologists and historians, and they were saying like the dog-headed people were reported on, and Alexander the Great reported to Aristotle about them in a letter. And you have all these people like saying, yeah, well, they reported on it, but what they probably experienced were baboons. They were probably baboons because baboons kind of looked like dogs, and they kind of, they're monkeyish. They're more bipedal,
kind of bark.
Except maybe it was just a massive one.
It was just a misunderstanding of what a baboon was, and apparently baboons were also cooking meat in the sun and wearing clothes and giving tribute to the king of India.
That seems unlikely.
It's just weird that they're like, it's probably just baboons, but then they have all these details about their civilization. They're like a just people, and they trade dye.
Baboons
for food
are not just people. I don't think they're very nice, baboons.
No, they're terrible people.
No, yeah, they're actually
pretty terrifying.
They got big butts too.
Big blue
butts.
Bottoms.
But anyway, so that's interesting. The other thing I wanted to mention about this, these correlations in history. One of the early ones in Christianity, you have St. Augustine, who he lived in the 5th century, so around the same time as these reports from Herodotus and Ctesias. But he was one of the most early influential Christian fathers. St. Augustine, I'm sure you guys have probably heard of him. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But he reported that he actually preached to the cynocephali. And that's where we get the idea. This is interesting. He says, quote, they later became recognized as, quote, morally dumb and sometimes even demonic, but nonetheless redeemable. So he thought you could preach the gospel to these.
Weird.
It's interesting that he said demonic.
Yeah.
Like he used that word, and you have these reports now of when you see these like dogmen, that there's this feeling of like malevolence and evil.
Yeah, it's interesting. Oh, so he wasn't a dog-headed...
No, that was St. Augustine. St. Christopher.
St. Christopher's dog-headed, supposedly, right?
He was one of the early followers of Christ, and he's depicted in Christianity as having a dog head, so being a cynocephali. And supposedly, the story behind him is that he was actually captured as a part of a dog-headed tribe of people, and he was a fierce warrior that later converted to Christianity and became a saint. So
that's crazy.
It's just weird. Yeah, all these like different things. Like maybe there was a real people known as the cynocephali that were dog-headed.
Well, okay, let's hypothetically, let's assume that there was a real civilization of dog-headed people somewhere in the mountains of India or wherever, or created by ancient Sumerian aliens or whatever you want to think. But let's assume that that's a fact, which is very, it's a very big assumption.
It's a fact.
Let's assume that that's a fact. Would you consider like the recent accounts that you've listened to about dogmen on like Dogman Encounter radio, things like that? Do you think that they would be the similar creature, or do you think that the ones we hear about recently are more supernatural?
Well, yeah, there definitely seems to be.
Definitely there's an aura.
They weren't supernatural back then, though, when they were dogmen.
Well, they lived in a culture where they
became supernatural.
Yeah, like, right. I mean, they're probably not the same kind of thing.
No, I would
right?
say these are different things that people are experiencing. Although there is a story in Dogman Encounters of...
Why would they be?
Why would they be the same?
Different?
Why would they be different?
Well, I guess the descriptions, like, it depends though, because there are depictions of the cynocephali, dog-headed men that have the backwards legs, that have like the more werewolf-looking, upright, coyote-walking dudes.
But I guess my point was like these ancient civilizations that these historians are describing are cultures of dog-headed men that are wearing clothes and cooking food and giving homage. So, but the dogman encounters you hear about now are more werewolf-looking things that aren't wearing clothes. So, wouldn't they feel naked?
Maybe not.
Would they? Like, where was the change?
Yeah,
it seemed like they would have to devolve in some way.
Right.
To me, it seems like a separate thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's possible. But I wanted to say
if either exists.
No, there is one encounter because so the cynocephali is fascinating. Maybe just say it's a fascinating idea, but there's one encounter that I've heard on Dogman Encounters.
Oh,
radio,
yeah, I like this one.
And it's I couldn't find it, but I know it's in there somewhere because he has like 300 episodes. But it's a kid who now he's an adult, but he's recounting the story. He either lives in a trailer park or he lives like right next to the trailer park. And at one point he wanders into the park and he sees two people talking to each other in front of this trailer, which it would be normal in a trailer park because people talk to each other in a trailer park, but they both had heads of dogs. And they're like, what? They were like barking, like talking to each other. And this kid is like, what the fuck?
That's
and so
beyond terrifying.
So they look at him, he looks at them, and they freak out, and he freaks out, and he runs back, and he climbs over his fence to get to his house, and he looks back, and I think they're like staring at him from the fence, just like, and he just has this feeling of like, he fucked up. Like, he should not have seen what he saw.
Was this some sort of magical trailer
park? But then what's interesting is supposedly these accounts of these cynocephali, like these dog-headed people, is when they're discovered, when they're seen, they freak out. So it's not just like people freaking out, but they freak out because they don't want to be seen.
It sounds almost like shape-shifting type stuff.
Exactly. It sounds like a therianthrope, like a skinwalker or something.
Yeah, like that's not their, like they've unveiled themselves to each other in the moment so that they could have some sort of...
Or maybe their hologram wristband broke and you could see their real self.
It's so terrifying thinking about dogs going...
And that's how they describe, that's how the historians describe it. They describe it as unintelligible, inarticulate language that sounded like the barking of a dog and not that of man. But that's how they witnessed them communicating to each other. But it's interesting that all these years later, you have a weird encounter of some guy in a trailer park. Did he study...
This was a kid?
Did he study Theseus too? Or did he just actually have an experience like this and it just happens to fit with historical context of these things?
This was a child?
He was a kid at the time. He was like, I think he was like 10 or 12.
Okay, and so probably not on drugs.
Yeah, like it sounds
not
almost
eating
like an acid
moonflower
trip or something.
seeds.
But yeah, he was a younger kid.
That's crazy. How do you go to sleep after that ever
I don't think
again?
you do.
Were they wearing, did they live in the trailer park? Were they like wearing like, blue jeans and listening to listening to like Hank Williams and drinking Natty Lights? Like, what was that would be great.
Hey, don't
dogmen don't drink.
Don't stereotype
Natty
those
Lights.
trailer park.
I like Natty Light and
I like Hank Williams.
You like Natty Light?
I mean, it's inexpensive.
You also live in a trailer,
disgusting.
Chris. You also live in an RV. So you're like
true.
You're stereotyping.
I'm not stereotyping. I'm trying to visualize the scene of the dog-headed men from the trailer park.
They're eating a Red Baron.
Yeah, I just like the idea.
They're drinking taco sauce from the bottle.
I love Red Baron.
They have like stained wife beater on.
But it's just human blood instead of like barbecue sauce.
And it's just like grease and like what you'd normally see in
Give
like
me that cheese sauce.
Trailer park. Yeah.
Hey,
Norma!
This child wasn't salty enough.
Norma, give me the sauce. I don't sauce on my child I'm eating.
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned, yes, thank you for that. That's good timing.
The bell means continue.
You mentioned like you were saying like they looked out and they realized like, oh, they could be seen. You hear that with, you hear that with so many different kinds of quote unquote supernatural entities. Like all of a sudden they realize that they're being witnessed by a human that should not be able to see them. Like even like gnomes, fairies, like on the farthest edges of belief, these kind of cryptids or entities. Like, but you hear that constantly. Like it's always that like
they don't want to get caught. They
like
can't
holy
get
shit,
seen.
how can you see me in this moment?
Shapeshifters.
It's dangerous for their survival probably if they are like a legitimate race living in caves.
Why didn't they just go eat him?
Yeah, maybe they're vegetarian.
That's where we get the story of
when you think about it, though,
Hood.
like, I mean, what is he going to go tell the police? I saw two dogmen talking to each other.
That's the problem is you can't. Like, you can't tell. You can tell mom and dad, and they're going to say, you had a bad dream.
You can tell Vic Cundiff, but that's about it.
You can tell Vic Cundiff on Dogman Encounters Radio. And you can tell us. Leave us a speak pipe. Have you seen
a dogman?
Have you seen an upright walking canid? We would love to hear that.
Hey, yeah, and if you're a lot of our listeners are from Ohio, so there's
go to our website.
A chance out there.
Go to our website, beliefhole.com, and leave us a speak pipe about your...
Is it up?
Yeah, it's been up. Yeah, you can leave a speak pipe and visit our Patreon on there. It's like a maintenance page, but it's got all that stuff on it.
We're getting hacked a lot.
We got hacked hard. Ever since the Princess Diana episode, the Queen hacked us.
Conspiracy.
I wonder if... That's so weird.
Oh, that is weird. I didn't even think about that.
I mean, websites get hacked. That's true. A thing.
We can't talk about that anymore.
And honestly, like, yeah, it was like redirecting to like an 18 and up. Like,
I know what you did. Nanny.
It's the Illuminati. They hacked us, and they also are getting some affiliate money from some porn sites at the same time. So it's a win-win for them.
We never got. It was never redirected to a porn site, though. I don't think.
I think it was redirecting to something that required an 18 and up.
The last time I checked before we put up the maintenance
page. It's good
page,
now. Don't be afraid. Please go.
And the last time I checked,
we're inspiring a lot of faith right now on our website.
Redirecting to like a lot of online college, like search engine thing.
Oh, okay.
Like DeVry and Phoenix and whatnot.
Okay, well.
Anyway,
Round
3 bells.
Three.
So yeah, 3 bells.
So anyway, when it comes down to it, who the fuck knows? Are dogmen real? I
think
hope so.
I think they are. I heard actually a story recently about a judge in Ohio who had witnessed it while jogging.
What?
Along a cornfield about an hour north of Columbus. Yeah, I wanted to get him on the show, but I didn't have time to reach out to him.
Maybe next week.
He's a judge?
He's a judge, municipal court judge.
I'm sure that'd be cool. Like
probably a liar though. Probably a dirty, dirty liar. He was friends with Brett Kavanaugh, so.
Oh God!
Might be a liar.
Why would you go there?
Let's get political.
No, I do.
Let's get political. Can we take a pee break?
Whoa.
I'm sorry. Is there anything else we want to say on the Dogman? Did you have any other information?
I was just going to say, we have probably a whole other episode on like if things like this do exist, like what could be the potential reasons? What are the caveats?
I just wanted to use that word. It doesn't make sense at all.
I'll take it. I'll allow it.
What are the caveats?
What are the potential?
What are the pitfalls?
Explanations. What are the pitfalls? What are the potential explanations for these entities existing? And if they do exist, how is it that they're showing up in places where you would assume there'd have to be large populations, like whether it's Bigfoot or Dogman or whatever. So is it an interdimensional thing? Is it like
the caves underground?
Right, and like we won't get into it today, but one day when we cover Skinwalker Ranch, there's a really good interview from one of the PhD investigators that were working
it's great.
at the time, where he's talking about watching a giant hairy thing crawling through a portal floating above the road
in the sky.
Yeah, and this was like
just a bizarre.
This is a doctor of physics that's hired by a government contracted agency to investigate this piece of property. But it just reminds me of like, who knows the potential for
what's out there, what's in dimensions next
things
door.
existing. Yeah, they could be coming through, and maybe are they just like a Stephen King walk-in type thing?
A walk-in.
Yeah, where things are maybe certain places around our planet where it's a thinner region of our reality to the next, and maybe some places things slip through, and that's why you see them momentarily, and then you don't see them for 20 years, and then again 20 years later, another flap of sightings like Mothman. Maybe they're just interdimensional visitors that happen to be in the right place at the right time to enter into our realm and then just blink out for another few decades. Like who knows? But
maybe they are the old gods that CERN is trying to open.
Well, leave it to that question, I guess, before we move, and then we can move on.
Good question, Chris.
Just a thought.
I liked it.
It's
spooky. Maybe we can get into that in our next unicorn episode.
Yeah. Origins of entities.
Cool,
guys. Well, let us know what you think on the Speak Pipe. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll do the news.
The Belief Hole Podcast. Sometimes it sets my teeth on edge. Other times it helps me control the chaos. It's been a week since I've heard a new episode. I can feel my dark passenger taking the wheel. I just know there's something dark in me and I hide it. I certainly don't talk about it, but it's there always. This dark passenger. If I don't get a new episode soon, they'll be exposed to the glare, reflecting my darkness like some grotesque carnival mirror. I won't fight him. I don't want to. He's all that I've got. Nothing else could love me. not even myself.
Babe, they just released a new episode.
Oh, no shit.
That's awesome. So that was one of our awesome friends.
Yeah, friends and fans of the show.
Brooke Dexter.
Brooke and Nick sent that in.
You guys are awesome.
That was great.
That was
awesome.
very, very good.
It was hilarious.
I love how John actually, he's like, is that what do you think it was like a Dexter?
I thought that they you know how they have those programs where you can type in stuff?
Like an online soundboard?
Yeah, I thought that they had just mimicked his, reproduced his voice and you could type in whatever you wanted.
That's my teeth on edge.
That's my teeth on edge.
That's so great.
Thank you guys for that.
Yeah, that was
little piece of love.
Cool.
Yeah. More of those, please.
A little bit of soundpipe theater for you. Makes me want to watch Dexter again. That was a good series.
That's a great show.
Sets my teeth on edge.
Such a great line.
Well, before we get to the news, did you want to play that last Dogman interview clip?
Yes, I do.
And get some reaction to that.
Let's get a little
This is my favorite. When you started showing me Dogman clips
Dogman
a while ago. This is definitely my favorite one.
This story is interesting because I think she might be Austrian or something. I'm not sure. So her accent's kind of interesting, but her family goes out of town to London on a trip or something. So she is basically house sitting this place in the country. And she's there with her dog, and she has this terrifying experience. She goes to walk her dog. She's never felt scared there, never felt creeped out. But on this particular day, she had that effect. What is it? The spooky effect where everything goes quiet in the woods and there's some sort of apex predator lurking around.
Yeah, there's a name for that where everything goes silent. There's
all the birds stop chirping. It's just eerily silent. Something is wrong.
The Ohm effect? Something?
It's very spooky. And
he just can't let it go.
Yeah. My brain goes, every time I hear my own voice and it's not me, my brain just shuts down.
You have to say it after too, so people even though it's obvious that it's not you saying it live again because there's reverb on it and it's coming from a different space. You're you have to repeat it just so people know that I wouldn't say that.
You should be used to hearing your own voice because my voice sounds a lot like yours.
It just throws me off.
I like it.
I feel like I hit a mental speed bump.
Anyway, so she's out house sitting in the country and walking her dog, and she gets this freaky skin crawling feeling.
Yeah, she gets this skin crawly feeling, and everything goes quiet. All the birds stop chirping, everything. And I can't remember if she has a sighting at that moment or not. But she goes back. She goes back to the house, and that's probably what it sounded like before all the birds stopped. And at some point in her experience, she gets into the situation where she's in the house. This thing appears. Oh, that's right. I think the back porch light is on, so she can barely make out a figure behind the light.
Are you telling the story right now?
I'm setting up. We only could take
I just didn't know if you were actually
setting it up because. So
damn it, John!
It's so hard to edit these. To go through and edit the whole story down to
right.
So this is just a kind of a
setting it up.
It's okay. Anyways, this thing finally steps into the light on her porch, and it's just it looks like a freaking werewolf. It sounds like an upright walking wolf. That's just grinning at her from the window, and it's
always grinning.
In the part that I grabbed from the story is when this thing is tapping, tap on the window. And it's just
seems to be a common thread.
Yeah, there is this thread
sightings.
Look at me, I want to terrify you. And there's also this thing that people experience where they feel drawn to it. There's this gravity of malevolence that pulls you in. You have to look. You just look in the last one we heard, the clip earlier in the episode, where the guy's like, I don't know, but I had to look at it.
Well, that's human curiosity too.
For sure, but there's for these people, it sounds like there's
dark gravity
pulling. Something's pulling them to. It wants you to look at it.
The deadlights,
The deadlights.
Yeah, it's just drawing you to it. But anyway, so that's kind of the setup of the clip. It's at the window now, and we'll have the full episode linked on our website when we get the episode pages back up and running. But because the whole episode's worth listening to. But yeah, here's that clip. Roll tape.
It was just staring at me with its eyes fixated on me, and it lifted his hand, and with one claw. I remember that claw really well because it was just branded into my memory, that sound of the claw against the window. And it was not, turned or round like that of a cat or a dog. It was more straight, but still it had, a small curl to its end. So it was like a rose thorn. You can imagine just a very, very, very big and very sharp. And it just tapped against the window. It was the most, I cannot tell you how terrifying for me that was, because, such a movement is just, that's human. I do not know any animal who would tap against a window with one claw. I do not know one single animal. And just the face, it was just, while it tapped against the window, and you have to remember that it was now in the full broad light, it was enough for me to see very good, for me to get a clear image. The face, I just saw the lips moving up. I could see the wrinkles forming on the nose, like when a dog starts to growl. I could see the wrinkles forming on its nose while it tapped against the window. It was just so horrible. It was the most horrible thing I've ever seen. And I've seen one or two pretty bad things over my life. And nothing could compare to that.
Wow.
That'd be pretty terrifying.
Yeah. She definitely, you could hear the emotion in her voice too. It sounds like she's certainly not lying about it, or at least to her own knowledge.
Right. She sounds authentic.
And at the end of her story, is it
creepy?
It just it goes away at some point. It seems like in these cases, they're always like, it gets that fear and then it's just gone.
And it leaves you.
This goes back to everything we ever talk about. That's that feeling of whatever these beings are that just they feed off of fear.
The dark passenger.
Who knows? Maybe all these things are connected. Maybe they're all the same trickster kind of entity that's just taking different shapes to garner the most. Actually, it's funny. Yeah, you just mentioned it. Yeah. That same kind of idea, which is actually Stephen King based that off of. Maybe
himself.
It's not the Wendigo, but he based it off of. There's an ancient I think it's Native American or might be Scandinavian legend, and I would have done research had I known we were going to be talking about this, but where there is this sort of entity that will take the form of your greatest fear to draw that food
energy
out of you. That's their food, and that's actually how he got the idea for Pennywise and the intergenerational reoccurrences of this child abducting clown. It's because in the book it would take different forms.
Yeah.
Oh, the remake or I thought it was good. I was watching it like on the edge of my seat because I was reading the book and loved the book, and I got a big group of my friends, childhood friends together to come watch it. So I felt this pressure for it to be really good. So the whole time I'm like, is this good? I can't tell. Yeah, because I had made it this big event to go see this thing. We had like 10 people there and everybody seemed to really enjoy it. I
thought it was pretty damn creepy.
Yeah. And
I mean, the visuals
did a pretty good job.
That opening scene of chomping on the kid's arm. Spoiler alert. There was a child.
Like the view from above.
Arm.
Like at first, and how the hand stretches out and like grabs it. I thought the actual encounters with it were pretty
good,
disturbing.
Yeah,
like it's like American Horror Story style, like that level of intensity visually.
Yeah. I think we could say spoiler alert, but at this point, if you haven't seen it, well, it's your fault.
Yeah,
but I think one of the weakest I thought scenes for me anyway was the scene at the abandoned house where Pennywise turns into like this leper sort of thing, because to me it was just too much CG. They could have done like more makeup for the leper, this creepy guy with his skin falling off.
Let me give you a blowjob.
Right. Well, I think they took that out. They didn't use that in the. In the book. It was like he was trying to suck the kid's and come out from under the porch, and
you don't have to
use the D word. You say wee wee.
Are you serious?
Well, mom doesn't like when you swear.
Mom,
we said the F word, and
not really that much.
Okay,
you're the one that keeps bringing up
he offered
dirty words.
Pennywise comes out from underneath the porch as a leper and offers to give the young boy fellatio.
There you go.
Is that better?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, maybe we'll just bleep out the D word.
It sounds so much more elegant when you say it like that.
Okay, well, we are all about elegance here.
I still like wee woo.
Okay.
I suck as wee woo.
Anyway, but I thought it was pretty good. I'm excited for the second
It'll be
part of
interesting
it.
to see the second.
Book's fantastic if you've never read. It's a tome though. It's like 1,200 pages.
Yeah,
or something.
It's a summer read.
Yeah, it is for sure. Or if for Jeremy, it's a lifetime read.
It's every 5 years, include another couple.
The story of it is Jeremy trying to finish the book. Every 10 years comes back to a chapter.
I would never finish that book. I wouldn't even try to read it.
I know.
That's old.
I
would
old.
never
talk about that.
Well, should we do the news?
Yeah, let's do the news.
Let's do the news.
Can you stop hitting that thing on the microphone? It's very distracting.
That's just how I breathe. What are you talking about?
Yeah, everybody's gonna know you're a nerd who vapes.
It's just a crack pipe. It's just a crack pipe, guys.
I hate the sound of that thing on mic.
I actually think it's really pleasing. It's like almost like what is that, DMS?
It sounds like
SR?
you're smoking crack.
It does sound like a crack pipe. Like, because I know what a crack pipe sounds like. It sounds like that.
It also reminds me of Nathan Stoppelman from Lift the Veil. He smokes on camera, and all I hear is that crackle sound.
The YouTube channel, Lift the Veil. That's a good conspiracy YouTube channel, isn't it?
Yeah, he's actually just had the guy from, what's his name? He's like the other guy that came out with the Sandy Hook stuff.
But now this episode's going down.
Jason Statham.
You just said the word Sandy Hook. on
red
live
alert,
air.
red flag.
But he just had him on, like, and he actually went to trial. Like someone sued him from the family, and like he's
really?
He's actually like a crisis management specialist.
Oh.
Like he's actually a really fascinating dude. But he never changed his story. He's like, I think it's totally been manipulated.
Right.
And he has all this information about, because he's studied this stuff his whole life.
Yeah.
But as far as a credible...
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, he would go into schools to help them with, to help them prepare for these kinds of events. And he was coming out saying there's a lot of fishy stuff.
He found all this stuff out. You know, he basically said that there was other things going on besides this official story. But anyways, I'm not getting into that.
Yeah.
And I'm not...
No, let's dive into it. Let's just get our
not claiming
show
one
shut
way or
down.
the other. I'm just saying that like there are other people out there besides Alex Jones that have talked about this.
Right.
And have a actually reason to.
Yeah, have like some sort of background.
It's a dangerous topic culturally, but it is interesting. There are definitely things out there that make you go,
Well, I don't think the thing about Alex Jones getting taken down from that, I don't think that the story itself is what... I just think they would have found anything.
I think it was an easy for them to grab onto.
Yeah, and to pull on the emotions of people.
Oh,
and be
for
like,
sure.
how can this man still talk and have a voice?
Yeah.
Hate speech. Anyways, so let's do the news. Let's do that stinger again.
Do it again. We are Valid News.
Live with Brett Kavanaugh.
Oh. Wait, who's that again? Okay, let's do it one more time. Reel it back. Not really. Take 3.
Okay. Terry Kreischer.
Okay.
Bert Stevenson.
Oh, I was going to do a Bert. I was going to say Bert Plymouth. That's going to be my news
Mandy
name.
McAfee.
Trent Kenyon.
Yeah, I guess most are female now, so we got to come up with females.
Are they most of them?
I would say 70%.
Unless you have a cool last name like
all the guys I think are from all the people I think are from CNN are guys though.
Yeah.
Wolf Blitzer.
Wolf
John. Is that his real name? That's got to be a news name.
He is a clone.
He looks
robot.
like a wolf.
I'm Wolf Blitzer.
He's a cynocephali. He's got his hologram skin suit on, and you can't see through it. He's out sniffing fear in the back room. That's why there's such fear mongers, because they're feeding on it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is definitely spawn of Satan.
I think CNN stands for cynocephali.
We're definitely going to get taken down after
news.
this episode.
Anyway.
So what's your news story, Chris?
Well, I got two of them. I don't know.
You got one with We are Valid News.
We are death of truth. We have
death
got
of
the
truth. They said we are death of truth.
We are death of truth.
So I got two news stories. One's from the Guardian or the Independent, and one's from MysteriousUniverse.com. One is more fun Halloween, and one is more conspiracy Halloween.
One's more Beyonce Halloween.
Well, one's more Beyonce Halloween. One's more nursery rhyme in the middle of the night Halloween.
Terrifying nightmare Halloween.
What do you prefer to hear first? I'm just going to give us.
I want to hear the
Actually,
one.
What I'm going to do?
Can I hear the one with the clip first?
Yeah, I want to hear that.
Okay,
Let's
that
clip it
one.
up.
So this is from the Independent, and the headline is "Mystery of Eerie Late Night Nursery Rhyme That Haunted Woman for Months Finally." What the fuck, John?
I was just watching
This is
John.
your whole.
I was watching John trying to get the burp out, and I couldn't.
I thought it was gone.
Why even do it into the microphone?
I don't know.
We are children. Please, Chris, continue.
There's a lot of editing going on.
We're not going to edit any of this. It's all delicious.
All right, mystery of eerie late night nursery rhyme that haunted woman for months finally solved. Unnerving tune woke up residents in Ipswich by playing over and over again.
So where is that?
Where did it play from?
Well, that's how they solved it. They figured it out. So it's not that much of a mystery.
In your words, what was this? It was.
So I'm not going to go through the whole thing.
Just give us in your words, like what was.
And I read this 3 nights ago, so I've got no details for you. But
we do have the clip though.
In Ipswich, I think it was a factory.
I've heard of that place before.
If you want, I could read the short article to you. Just
tell us what
you remember
synopsis.
of it. Okay, so lady here. Basically, what I remember is the headline. People in this town are hearing this creepy nursery rhyme and. For months don't know where it's coming from, and finally there was enough of an uproar from the community that there was a small investigation. I don't know how it would take months to figure this out. You follow the source of the sound, but it was some like industrial park.
It's Ipswich. What do you expect?
It was some
Where is Ipswich?
industrial
I think
park.
It's New York.
It's in England, I think.
Close.
England, yeah.
I thought
there might be one here too. This is the Independent, so it's
sounds like Ypsilanti.
So
Ipswich.
Sometimes the tune played just once at 2 a.m. or 4 a.m., but other times it repeated over and over again for hours. The rhyme, which relates to the story of an old man who bumped his head and couldn't wake up, left Miss Randall frightened and questioning whether she was imagining things. And she said, quote, "It's sung by what sounds like a very young child," she told The Independent. "It's very haunting. People have said it's like something out of Freddy Krueger." Oh. That's what the lady had to say.
She sounds like she's from Ipswich.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go to the bottom.
It would be pretty haunting.
There's a lot more people talking in this article. I'm just going to go down to the bottom here.
Scroll.
Troll.
That's the comment section.
The council's rapid response team drove out to, there's a rapid response team for this apparently, drove out to the scene several times in an attempt to track down the noise, only for it to fall silent before they got there. They finally tracked it down when Miss Randall called in after being woken up by the same recording at 11:15 p.m. on September 10th.
Rapid response team.
Rapid response
They're like waking up.
They're like hanging at the fire station, like sliding down the poles. The nursery rame's going. Let's get it.
Rapid response.
So then it goes on to say, "It was only the last couple of weeks that it started to play over and over again," said Miss Randall. "I told them they would definitely hear it if they came this time." The team arrived at her home in Bramford Road 15 minutes later. Seems like a lot of unnecessary stuff. Okay, so the child's voice, the child's voice was being played through a loudspeaker on a warehouse a few hundred yards away on the Farthing Road industrial estate. So apparently, I'll summarize. Farthing. So
That's
apparently,
Europe.
Spiders had set off motion detectors like on regularly each night. These nocturnal spiders would come out and turn and set off.
How big are the spiders?
They must be big spiders.
Like
or the lenses
for the motion detectors are very small.
Yeah, maybe the motion detectors are very small. Either way, it was setting off this really creepy. So, but apparently, and I want to find the quote for this because I want to know. Okay, yeah, so a spokesman for the site told the Ipswich Star newspaper, "The sound is only supposed to act as a deterrent for opportunistic thieves that come onto our property, and it is designed only to be heard by people on our private land."
I love
Why
that
would you
you're
play
deterrent.
a nursery rhyme? Like, you find something super creepy. Is it supposed to make them, like,
Freak
scared?
out? I would creep the crap out of me, dude. We'll play it.
They
We
like
should
go
play
back
it.
into their childhood and have all these traumatic memories and run away.
You think you would just have, like, an alarm sound?
I think these people are devil
Play it, though,
worshippers.
because this is creepy.
Give it a play. Okay, that's your deterrent for people to come in. It's just such a weird.
I love
that as a deterrent.
I mean, it's kind of awesome.
I think that's
I would
awesome.
run away.
Absolutely.
But I'm not a burglar either.
I wouldn't
don't know
even
what the
burgle
mind-
anything. If I had something, I would drop what I had because I thought I might be cursed by the spirit.
I'm pretty
of
sure,
is...
though, statistically, burglars are not superstitious, so I don't think it would have much effect.
Statistically?
Statistically.
Yeah. Have you ever been burgled? I just love that word. I think it's hilarious. It's no one burglars anything anymore.
I've had hamburgers that were burgled before.
That's not
Burgle.
funny.
It's true.
That's such an old word because like burgle.
To burgle someone.
I've been burgled.
That's awesome. I love it. Burgled.
Okay.
Okay, how do you segue
So
out of that one?
I'm glad we hit some really
Round 6.
important international news. That was. I'm glad we covered that. I feel edified.
Now let's get to Beyonce.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Beyonce. Okay, so this comes from MysteriousUniverse.com.
Okay. This is literally Beyonce.
Pull this guy up.
Beyonce, I haven't heard much from her lately.
So,
expecting some
all right,
words from her.
So this headline here is former Beyonce bandmate accuses singer of dark sex magic, and I've seen this is from Brett Tingley over at MU, a writer for them, but I've seen this on other sites. One of Beyonce's former bandmates has accused the superstar and entrepreneur.
Read slower.
Oh my God,
Sorry,
man.
Start over.
I'm going to slap your mouth.
Like you're a news guy.
One of Beyonce's former bandmates has accused the superstar and entrepreneur of engaging in, quote, extreme witchcraft and has now filed for a civil harassment restraining order. Kimberly Thompson, who was Beyonce's drummer for 7 years, says the singer used dark magic, spelled Magick. I don't know if that's important.
Yeah, that is important, actually.
To surveil the musician and, quote, control her finances. Is this a case of band drama gone too far, or might there be something to all those allegations that Beyonce and her husband Jay-Z may be members of some secret Illuminati cabal?
Well, that's true.
The news of the bizarre legal suit was broken by celebrity garbage news site The Blast. The Blast. Celebrity garbage.
I know that's how they describe themselves.
I do too. The Blast reports that it obtained documents related to the suit, which contained Thompson's claims that Beyonce has used, quote, extreme witchcraft, dark magic, and, quote, magic spells of sexual molestation to manipulate and harass the drummer, while also spying on her phones and electric communications. Thompson also says Beyonce murdered her kitten and confirmed to Pitchfork that the court filings are indeed authentic. Why would Thompson make these claims? For their part, Beyonce and her husband Jay-Z are frequently accused of being a part of the Illuminati, whatever that might be, and even allude to those accusations in their performances and videos. At the Coachella Festival earlier this year, Beyonce wore costumes and made certain hand gestures that some tinfoil haberdashers believed were the singer-dancer's
right in front of your face.
fashionista's way of flaunting proof of her Illuminati connections in full view of the public. To be fair, Beyonce was flashing the, quote, Eye of Horus sign, weaving various Egyptian symbols, and even sung into a microphone which appeared to sport the horn skull of Baphomet.
Yes, I knew we tied us into Dogman.
Prince of Beasts at the festival. Still, given that she and Jay-Z must be aware of these conspiracy theories, what better way to drum up some free buzz? As for Kimberly,
that's such a lame argument. Go ahead.
As for Kimberly Thompson, well, as Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, when you strike at a king, you must kill him. Try to catch Beyonce on tape engaging in those dark rituals next time, Kimberly. I'm sure TMZ would pay a pretty penny for one, unless they got wind of it first. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
Strike at a king.
Back to the. I mean, we've talked about this in our earlier episodes. Like the amount of symbolism of Baphomet and like the Eye of Horus. And
come on, everybody at home. It's rampant.
It's rampant and pervasive. It is. Music culture. It is everywhere.
It's definitely tied to. I mean, all that symbolism. I mean, it's.
But the idea of they just using it as a publicity, that's such nonsense.
Well, so to talk about her specific claims too, like the idea.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
but I mean, the claims.
It could. Well, I mean, but look at the specific claims. We covered the brujeria. What was her name? The Iggy Azalea, who she showed video of her killing chickens and her whatever a black kind of magic. And the spelling of the magic, I think, is important, Chris, because I believe that spelling of magic comes specifically from the Aleister Crowley following of magic with the CK.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. We could check the facts. But that's interesting. And then you have, the former bodyguard of Lady Gaga, who supposedly came out saying that he couldn't take it anymore because he found her in a bathtub full of blood.
Oh, right, yeah.
Bathing for whatever.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, all the connections to, what's that lady's name? That does the spirit cooking.
Lebowski? Oh.
Lady Gaga. And I mean, they're just into the weirdest, parties where they eat cakes that are people,
right? Connected
so much weird, bizarre behavior, and it's just there's limitless amounts of evidence out there that they're interested in the occult. There's no doubt about it.
I mean, we don't get together with our friends as a hobby to eat people-shaped cakes.
Yeah, well, I don't think
most people do.
I think on
it's art.
Whether or not people get together and are interested in the occult, that's one thing. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it depends on what you're doing with, what you're trying to achieve with getting into the occult.
Well, when you have magic being good or bad.
When you have these people that are beyond rich and famous, they're...
Well, that again necessarily doesn't mean...
No, it doesn't. But when you add up all the symbolism and what they're doing, there's weird connections to this stuff.
Right. But what I'm saying is what is if their end goal is to cause harm, that's one thing. If their end goal is to be into weird things. Well, exactly. Right. This is an allegation of exactly that.
Like a lot of things in life, you put something dark into something, you get the dark back. That kind of karmic effect, right? So if it has to do with blood and sacrifice, and even if it's symbolic, I feel like there's still a negativity
still
attached to that.
igniting some sort of energy in those. I mean, it's
you don't know what you're inviting into yourself when you practice that. Even playing with the Ouija board.
Did you ever see that Beyonce video where she was at the Super Bowl or something, and
That thing's coming out of her throat?
Yeah, that thing is coming out of her throat.
What? There's like a video, like it slows down her performing.
She looks like a demon, for sure.
And
like,
it's tied to
for
quotes.
sure she looks like one doesn't mean she is.
But it ties to quotes of her saying like, this thing takes over her.
Oh, what?
Sasha
all these musicians too
That's
have
not a very
alter
cool
egos,
demon
like,
name,
where
though.
they invite these other like darker spirits, for lack of a better
throughout
term.
time, we have artists doing this throughout time, like the Muse. Right?
Yeah, we did a whole show on this.
Yes. So go back and listen if you haven't.
Go back and
listen.
listen.
We're going to do more shows on it, I'm sure. This is a topic that goes
or maybe
leagues
we
deep.
won't. I don't feel like we're going to get banned at some point.
We could we just won't say names. We'll use all code names for our...
Beyonce?
Well, yeah. Well, instead of Alex Jones, we'll just refer to Mr. Tangy Tangerine or something like that.
You'll make code name for all
of them. You can go to our website to access the legend of the code names.
That's awesome. It's like a legend.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to me.
A key.
It's interesting to me that someone like, and I honestly don't know where I stand on a lot of the stuff with celebrity. I could definitely see the connections. And
Chris is always on the fence.
Well, and how
it's good to have a
how
balance.
necessarily deep the evil is in there, whether or not there's actual evil demonic stuff, like intentional stuff going on.
It can only be so much in front of your face where you... Okay.
I know, but a lot of times like Illuminati symbolism to me doesn't necessarily mean they're worshiping a real
Why would
devil.
everyone... Well, that's true. I mean,
That's
just
all I'm saying,
because
like,
they're
and
in
we
the
can
Illuminati
connect
symbolism.
we can connect it, right.
But Baphomet, that kind of stuff is tied to satanic rituals.
Right, but a lot of people in those who are quote unquote modern Satanists.
Why would everyone be doing it though?
No, but what I'm saying is a lot of people, modern Satanists who use the Baphomet symbol aren't like in the writings or whatever. They're a lot of them aren't saying they're saying put love like that. Do what thou will is the first part of that
you're
sentence,
saying that
but
they
the
may
second
be
part
involved
is
in it, but the intentions are not evil in the long term.
Yeah, like okay, for example,
they just like doing it.
well, doing what? Worshiping a goat?
Yeah, or
yeah,
whatever.
maybe. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like that doesn't necessarily.
It depends. I mean, so
so the first part of that statement we say,
do what thou wilt,
right?
The whole of the law.
The second part is, but nothing should come before love.
Love under will is like the final part of that quote that doesn't really get quoted, and it's also kind of nebulous to pin down exactly what that means, But Aleister Crowley, obviously, I mean, he has quotes where he talks about child sacrifice, and so how much is it symbolic?
And also, they're not going to come out and tell you that they're like doing,
right. You have
illegal things
for sure. That's where this is so confusing because then there are groups of people that believe that they are just practicing a form of like rebellious, like the Anton LaVey sect of Satanism, where it's just rebellious kind of atheism.
Mm-hmm. It's parody on religion
and provoking and satirizing things and pushing people's buttons. But then you also have like even LaVey's writings talks about like if someone there are people that deserve to be destroyed, even though like there are like children animals are sacrosanct or whatever but if someone gets in your way and you're wanting or practicing certain magic or whatever to destroy that person leads to their destruction, then you should celebrate that. I mean, there is definitely a darkness, even if you're going to say it's
for sure. I mean, and also we don't have evidence of any of this stuff as far as like what they're practicing in their own lives, other than what they're just giving
writings,
us, and just through their music videos and their lyrics.
Right, and it's easy to look at like definitely like a Lady Gaga video or something where it's like it looks so bloody, gruesome, dark,
perfume
demonic
commercial.
Right, yeah, like it's so. So it's definitely like what they're showing.
It wouldn't be hard to take it to the next level, though. I mean, we don't have any evidence for anything, but you can see where this stuff would go in their private time. Like maybe it's nothing, but there's only so much like directly in your face stuff that people can give you before like people tell you who they are,
right?
And they're telling
this is my me time and this is my.
They're telling you who they are, and it's fine. You don't. I mean, no one has to believe anything, but I mean, it's just. As a society, these are the people that we look up to and allow into our children's lives and influence us. And when we do it without question and without looking at some of these underlying connections to things, it's a dangerous road, I think, for society to go down.
I agree. I guess my point was that you have musicians who are that is their image. Some musicians that is their image, but they openly talk about what they believe in. They'll say that like for example Marilyn Manson, for example, Brian, what's his name? His last name, but like
King?
Brilliant dude, really decent guy. You hear him in interviews and like really.
Well, just because this is a really good guy.
Well, no, but I'm saying
on the surface.
I'm just saying
he's an intelligent man. I would give him that.
Right, but he also doesn't worship the devil.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Who are we talking about?
Brian. What is his name? Marilyn Manson. Is it Brian?
Oh yeah, Brian Warner.
Brian Warner.
Yeah,
from Ohio, by the way.
So he's got to be a good guy. He's from our state, the Buckeye State.
No, well, what does he say? I'm pretty sure he's. I think he's.
I mean, do you know him personally? Do you know what he does in his private time?
No, but he goes into detail about like his performances and like why he puts on and how it's like
there's a dark man.
So you can say.
but people can say that too.
People, but also, but in your opinion, can people have a dark persona that they wear as a performer and not be that, and that's who they perform, or is it always
No,
both?
I think you're right.
That's all I'm saying. Like we can't always
it's tied to him more deeply, obviously, because there's a picture of him with Anton LaVey when he was young.
Well, yeah,
and obviously when they're in the interview, they're not going to come out and say that, I do sacrifice children and animals, and like they're going to be like
right, but
to your face one way. Obviously, that's the whole point of some of this religion. It's like they're deceiving. That's what
that's kind of the point. I mean, if you consider the idea of like Aleister Crowley's Magick, right? His idea of Baphomet worship, whatever, and like there's a book on magic and like a woman using her feminine magic and all this stuff. A lot of it is about deception and about how to practice your will above and beyond the expectations and hopes of other people.
Is that was that
in that comes deception?
That book you're talking about, the what female witches, how to use their magic, was that from Anton LaVey?
No, that was Aleister Crowley.
That was Aleister, but he wrote that book?
Yeah.
Oh, that is pretty. That's a pretty fucked up book. I've read.
There's a lot of
excerpts
and I don't know, child sacrifice.
But isn't there a difference? I mean, we could go. We should probably have a whole piece on this. But there is a difference between like Anton LaVey.
I know. I mentioned
parody stuff, right? I mean, that's kind of that form of the quote Satanism is it's parody on.
Well, that's the front facing message of that form of Satanism is that it's satire and it's to push the boundaries of like what religion
right.
is.
And a lot of those followers who are those Anton LaVey Satanists believe they're just doing they're not in it for the blood sacrifice and
right. Even though he for sure. So, but there's this blurry line of because what he practiced too, and the films he put out that included human sacrifice and stuff. How much of that are
Anton LaVey?
No. Yeah, Anton LaVey, yeah. So how much of his followers are practicing this as like kind of an atheistic anarchist?
Oh, and how much are using it for more of an actual
like... And still, it goes back to deception. Like, they're going to give you the persona. They're not going to come out and say that we're doing like these illegal activities behind the scenes.
If you did want to practice these things, you would say it's not real, guys, because you want to keep doing it in the background. So that's an argument.
Well, that's what makes it difficult, because I think I'm sure it's both.
I would say that there's definitely Satanists out there that probably are doing it as like an FU to God, or
to the structure, religious structure.
Yeah, sure. I have no doubt about that. But I still think it's a slippery slope in society when these are the people that we look up to and worship and allow our children to be exposed to.
Right, yeah, I think that conversation should be had. I think everyone should be considering it, not just assuming that it's all make-believe.
Well, right now it's people like Beyonce are like, she's the queen bee, she's the god of everything, and that's who people are worshiping, like
the church
openly.
Church of Beyonce. Wasn't there even like a service held at a church for Beyonce? Do you remember
she
about
does
that?
have a church of...
Yeah.
Like her followers have a Beyonce church where they worship her.
There was like an actual like
dude, I swear to God.
There was an actual, you can look up, there's an actual, at least
there's a Beyonce church.
Well, because it's like basically Beyonce helping people get through their hard
I would
times.
not be that surprised, but
I don't know how much what the
silly.
sacraments are, if there are any, or if it's just like
let's Google Beyonce church.
Church of Beyonce. Google it at home, kids, and write in and tell us how
people are going to church to worship Beyonce in San Francisco.
I do remember.
It's become a well-established fact that Beyonce is a higher being worthy of our worship.
Especially I read this article. It's a comedic.
I mean, this is the kind of stuff that goes on in our world. That's like, okay,
okie
dokie. Guess we're doing that.
Artichokesies.
But Brett Kavanaugh.
Did you find a thing?
What? Oh, I just read the headline.
Well, I think that was a jokey headline.
No, it wasn't. No. It was real.
Well, no, I mean, never mind.
It was a real thing. Oh,
right. His statement was
tongue-in-cheek,
yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, possibly.
But
I do think that there's fans out there that would worship her.
Was that an article about a church?
Yeah, I think the story is a church, the pastor of the church, or whoever, decided to hold a meeting for like the quote followers of Beyonce once a week, or at least on that day, at that time, to like celebrate how much she's helped people.
Look at this.
Okay, are we recording again?
Yeah, we're
okay. Sorry, yeah. Due to satanic technical difficulties and the powers of Beyonce, we did shut down our recording temporarily. So, and Chris's left arm has gone black, but
it'll be fine.
It'll be okay. So,
anyways, I think we covered
suffering the pangs of magic. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's
in the end, there's no way we can know this because we're not in these people's personal lives.
Right. Well, that's my point. Was that like. I think
we should be wary, though.
Right. I think there's reasons to discuss on both sides, and I think,
Chris is the defender of Satanists.
That's exactly correct. No, I just think
it's good to have
you can't label every person who wears black robes and
Right.
has crazy, creepy music videos with maybe some
Tell
satanic
people buy the
symbolism.
fruits of their labor.
Yeah,
I think in the end,
we can't judge a book by its cover. We
can't
can
know-
throw phrases back and forth.
People will tell you who they are. I mean, they're definitely involved in something.
People also, you said, deceive people.
I think
by
that's the point is
putting on-
they want this kind of like argument, but there's no consensus. You know, we have this continuing debate about the realness of this
Not
stuff.
really. Not many people even think about it.
I think more and more because
Maybe,
of,
but
because of the
still not
symbolism.
not the masses really think about this
Yeah,
stuff.
it's more just like a fashion and like a trend.
Yeah. Anyways,
I think if anyone should take anything away from this episode, it's that we can't say for sure about this stuff, but it's probably true, and Dogman's definitely real. That's what I would take away.
Dude.
For more information, I would definitely check out Dogman Encounters Radio on the Dogmen. That's a great resource with Vic Cundiff, and I would also check out our website, beliefful.com, because we will have that back up online completely soon with the episode page loaded with links to these references, and the North American Dogman Project, which I am now officially a researcher for.
Oh, are you?
Well,
congratulations.
I have actually filled out my application to become a on-scene investigator.
You should finish filling
I'm
it
going to finish out. But on their website, there's all these crazy... Look at this, John. This is a horse that was ripped open supposedly by a dogman in Ohio.
So what are you applying for?
This is the North American Dogman Project.
He's applying to be eaten by a dogman.
A rapid response team member.
Jeremy DoorDasher and also Dogman Hunter.
North American Dogman Project researcher.
Doesn't pay as well.
Look at that. Look at that wolf thing crawling. This is a child's sketch of what he saw crawling in their yard.
It looks like a wolf.
After this happening to their horses, and
it crawled.
It was crawling on the lawn, which wolves, maybe they do, but they're usually not 10 feet long, this one. According to there's always crazy stories out there.
Child's drawing.
Guys, you got to look into the
According to
Dogman.
the 3-foot tall child. It was 7
Well, actually,
feet
I think
long.
that was actually maybe the mother that drew that picture.
Oh,
so
still creepy.
Yeah.
So before we go, again, I just want to say, call in with your speak pipes. Give us some voicemails, some spooky stories happened to you, or some of your thoughts.
Beyonce, if you'd like to refute our claims,
call in.
Welcome to
do not sue us for libel or slander.
Well, we just read the story.
Yeah, no.
That's true.
I mean, I'm just commenting on the stuff that she puts out.
Obviously, we're just commenting on the things that are out there. I think that's important to talk about. Thank you again to Trisha for the Patreon.
Proof is in the pudding.
Ron,
Yes.
and Samantha for writing in on Facebook.
Yeah,
and
you know
being
what's
a great
interesting?
supporter of the show.
Trisha, who's a big fan of the show, she's written a lot blog-wise, kind of related to the Satanist topic. She has some friends in that.
Yeah.
So I might put some up on our blog about kind of some of the discerning between different forms
Sex
of quote
and
Satanism.
beliefs of what's. I think it'd be good to do an
spell some
episode on
things
that.
out for people.
In the future, it'd be cool to dig into that too.
Yeah.
I think Samantha, a friend of the show, wrote in to talk about that stuff. But yeah, it's just a fascinating.
But yeah,
topic
guys,
that-
send us some emails. Send us your
some emails,
your messages, and let's get some spooky stories for the next couple episodes. And thanks for listening.
All right, we love you. We will. For those of you who are,
I don't love you, but they do.
For those of you non-members, we will see you.
I love you as a human.
Next time.
Next time.
I love you next time as a human.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
It sounds like frogs.
Like chirping in
All
the...
right, seriously, goodbye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
See you guys.